Chapter 4854. He looked at the fairy cloud in the distance again. Dai Tian, who is corrected by the sun, is now in chaos. It seems that it is time for me to move. Immortal Yunyao, although Jian Wushuang had put the jade head in his pocket, he was still thinking about where the strange feeling came from after he looked at the jade head before. Did we know each other for a long time? Jian Wushuang quickly shook his head again to deny that he has practiced so far, but he hasn't even reached the tens of millions of years. The old friends he knows are now in the divine universe. This Dian Huan is brand new and unknown to him. Only Xian Yi and Lao Zun will be here. During this period of time in Desiu, Jian Wushuang has been completely determined that Xian Yi and Lao Zun must be in Daanhuan, and only here. Because Daanhuan is too vast, and its tolerance is so unimaginable. The inextricable links they left before all point to the only ultimate, Daanhuan. Convergence of mind, the four figures steadily shuttled above the clouds. Just then, a figure attracted Jian Wushuang's attention. It was a figure wearing a large black robe, moving forward at a constant speed. Jian Wushuang just glanced back, and then returned his gaze. After all, there are not many Yanxian shuttles in the ordinary sky, but they are all in a hurry. But soon, after experiencing a constant flying distance, he found something was wrong. The figure in the robe has been hanging not far away, neither close nor far away, strangely incomparable. Then, Jian Wushuang suddenly thought of something. On the way to the auction house auction, a mysterious person presented a jade first auction. Due to time constraints, no one cared about the appearance of the mysterious man who presented the jade head. Could it be that the mysterious person is the black robe in front? Jian Wushuang groaned, suddenly having a strong intuition. It should be him. As Jian Wushuang thought, his figure also burst up and flew away. Strange to say, he thought together and reached behind the black robe in a flash. He wanted to reach out and touch, but was shocked that he couldn't touch his coat. Where is the small crumb, dare to touch my prestige? A deep cry was like the thunder of 9 days, resounding in Jian Wushuang's ears. However, Jian Wushuang was not afraid. With a swing of his arm, he threw out hundreds of vigorous strengths and practiced, blocking the way of the black robe. Then, the black robe really stopped, facing back to the sword Wushuang, and his voice was deep. Small detritus, why should you stop me? I really don't want to stop you, but I just want to prove one thing, Jian Wushuang said loudly. Is the jade head in the ancient Wushuang auction house yours? The black robe continued to say in a deep voice, how is it, is not it? The younger generation of crumbs should not delay the journey of this seat. In this case, Jian Wushuang shrugged and then burst without any signs, then I will try your weight first. A little light circulated from his fingertips. A little mountain and river, both out. From the clouds, the sky covered the sky, blocking his way, and at the same time, there were countless meteor-like sky fires, which fell down. Another turbulent Tianhe swept up and swallowed the black robe. This is the fairy style of Jian Wushuang, as long as you can call all mountains and rivers in the field you want, and after the great battle, the fairy style has changed a lot, and you can call out any the power of what you think is doubled. Jian Wushuang stood on the spot, watching the world changes in the field, calm and incomparable. He didn't seem to worry about the safety of the black robe. After a while, Yun Shu took a rain break, and a terrible suction like a whale sucked all the world's changes. And that suction vortex was made out of the black robe. The younger generation, the little skill of carving insects. The black robe shape easily merged all the changes into a projectile size, and then shot at Jian Wushuang. His eyes narrowed and he immediately resolved. Only this time, Jian Wushuang intuitively felt that the black robe was not easy. And the black robe did not seem to be irritated by him, and did not take the next step. The crumbs are small. Since you got the jade head, you are destined to me. I will mention you a few today. Some things are far beyond your understanding. This is the level you shouldn't touch. It's too late to return it, so as not to regret it later and be unable to return to the sky. Jian Wushuang heard and said nothing, but stared at the black robe with no features. What are you, and what do these words mean? What do you mean by all means that you already know? Some things should not be handled by you, but you have already entered the game and caused everything to fall into the unknown. The black robe figure said here, and he will not continue to talk about it. Jian Wushuang, who heard these words, was already stunned, and then hurriedly said, "Who the are you and who sent me to tell me? Xian Yi or Lao Zun? Xian Yi or Lao Zun?" Exclamation point. The black robe was silent. "Scrap, young man, I don't know what you mean. What I have done now has no meaning. You can listen or not. We were originally in the same water, and it doesn't make any sense to say more. Don't delay this day. Our seat," he said and turned to leave. Jian Wushuang returned to God and said loudly, "Can you tell me where you are going?" The black robe stopped at the same place, turned his back to him, and left the last sentence. "I lived in Yang from the east." Then he disappeared. The whole figure was like a plume of smoke, scattered in the fairy cloud and disappeared. Jian Wushuang murmured to himself, "I passed Shangyang from the east capital. Dongdu, Shengyang, these are the names of Tianyu, or do they have other meanings? What are you foolish about? Have you been shattering your thoughts here?" Di Qing's voice was like a big hand, pulling him back to reality. "That's wrong. Why am I still here? We haven't left yet?" He was shocked, and he stepped back half a step, looking fixedly at the front. I saw it in the front. The jade head was still quietly placed in the crystal cover, and the jade eyes showed perseverance and free light. It is still in the partial hall of the auction house. The names of Qingqing, Spring and Autumn, Cui Jing, Zhao Ting and Wei Liujia all stood behind Jian Wushuang, all looking at him with doubtful eyes. Haven't I ever left? What happened just before that? Chapter 4855. Everything is unbelievable. Dreamlike, but true to the extreme, so that Jian Wushuang can't believe which side is the reality. It turns out that I really haven't left. Looking at the real scene in front of him, he realized in a trance that when he was talking with the black robe in the cloud, there were not a few people around him. Is it the eyes of this jade head that dragged me into that illusion? Jian Wushuang pondered, reaching for the front and the crystal cover sinking and disappearing. The tip of the finger came with a gentle touch, and at the same time it conveyed a dead silence without the breath of life. "I lived in Yang from the east." He murmured softly, just 6 words, as clear as it was engraved in his mind. Who would be the black robe in the illusion, and why would he say that to him? Is it Xian Yi, or is it sent by the old deity to warn? Jian Wushuang has no intention to move, the more so, the closer he feels to the truth. When you come to Dianhuan, you must be right. Everything will be learned here. He stretched out his hand and retrieved the jade head without any spiritual breath, and carefully put it in the bowl of the bottle. He was relieved. In just a few years, he was unconsciously caught in 2 ridiculous dreams, which made him more cautious. The first time was in the midst of a big day, and was dragged into a strange fantasy world inexplicably. The second time just happened. Both scenes are extremely real, as if they are foreshadowing something. Everything seems to be irrelevant, but it is like a prison cage covered by layers. After doing all of this, Jian Wushuang, with the names of Qingqing, Zhao Ting, and Wei Liujia, left the Van Gogh Wushuang auction house. Chuanqiu and Cui Jing stayed to check the auction house's income. The celestial domain in which the ancient auction house Wushuang was located originally had a name called Zhijing, which belonged to the jurisdiction of a celestial ancestor that encompassed 7 celestial domains. This Tianzong is called immortal territory, and in the eyes of the vast expanse of the Grand Division, although it is not a top force, it is also a hegemony. In the feast of the heavenly court, there was a Fujia Yenxian holding a dust, and then died in the hands of Jian Wushuang and the little emperor. It was a distinguished elder in that fairy field. It is even more rumored that Zhang Tian, the master of his fairyland, is likely to break through to Dianxian in several years. In this way, the forces of immortal territory developed in a gentle upward trend, and even had a lot of friction with the 6 emperor realms of the little emperor. After returning from the auction house to the little solitary sky in the 6-day realm, Jian Wushuang hurriedly took the jade head taken out of the bowl and placed it on the desktop to check it, trying to find some clues. Subsequently, Chen Qing also returned to Shaogudian, his face full of joy, carrying a bulging bag in his hand. Brother Sword, look at what I brought you back. He grinned and placed the bag in his hand on the case in front of Jian Wufeng. This is... Jian Wushuang looked at him. Chen Qing smiled secretly, and then opened the bag, revealing a disheveled hair. His eyes no longer have any shiny head. Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows, already recognizing this head, the guy who hit him in the previous Van Gogh Wushuang auction house. You killed? It wasn't me who killed it, it was Xiaodijin who beheaded him personally. Chen Qing scratched his head. Xiaodijin said that to insult you is to insult him, so he cut off his head and sent it to the Sword Brothers to indemnify him. Jian Wushuang secretly sighed, and he understood that although this kid was flying, he was not enough to kill. But the little emperor took this opportunity to send him directly after the killing, in fact, to pay for the crime not long ago. This kid died unjustly. Finally, after glancing at his dead head, Jian Wushuang waved it to Chen Qing's hands. Got it, find a mountain forest to bury him. Chen Qing nodded, then turned and flew out of the hall. Di Qing then sat down, watching him playfully and said, It looks like the little emperor is treating you well. It's a normal relationship, Jian Wushuang said softly. Di Qing no longer said much, looking for a place to sleep easily when he looked up. The battle between Demi Tian and Chang Fu caused him to lose another life, both in terms of strength and state, and before it was fully restored, Di Qing would be in a state of weakness. And he had 9 real lives, and now there are only 7 left. Although Di Qing didn't show it, Jian Wushuang still felt his loneliness and disappointment. Time is passing slowly. A few decades later, a messenger suddenly came to the little emperor's heavenly palace. The messenger wore a green robe and depicted a fairy with gold wire on his chest. The situation was quite extraordinary. He came to the Tiangong and met the little emperor. His face was neither humble nor overbearing. His Royal Highness, Zhang Xin, the son of Heavenly Sect of Immortal Territory, was invited to the Wan Gu Wushuang auction house half a month ago. It has been half a month now. I don't know if His Royal Highness the Little Emperor can tell where Zhang Xin is. I will go back and have an account with the suzerain. Lying lazily on the bed, Xiao Dijuan glanced at him sideways, and then waved his palm. Hurry, a little son of Tianzong, how do I know where he is? The Qingpao messenger looked calm and said, His Royal Highness surely knows that no one knows that the ancient auction house was established by His Royal Highness. Zhang Shun's jurisdiction disappeared, and there must be a connection. Xiaodijin heard the words, slowly sat up from the hua bed, his eyes gradually cold. Even if the auction house is now planned into my jurisdiction? Do you think I will remember the names of some cats and dogs? The face of the Qingpao messenger changed slightly, and there was a touch of humiliation in the eyes of Yukanshu www. Yukanshu. Crossing. Are you threatening me? The little emperor stood up, surging with extreme strength, and the indescribable coercion made the emperor of the green robe directly kneel in the temple with a thump. The humiliation in his eyes was even worse, but he didn't dare to show it. No, it's just that sect master Aiko is eager. If Zhang Shun can't be seen again, I'm afraid something will be done. Do something? Do you want to be a dog for Demetian, or do you want to stand against the seat? The little emperor came to him slowly, and the sneer in his eyes was even worse. Do you think a small fairy domain Tianzong can put pressure on this seat? Why don't you tell me that he was the one who killed himself, and his head was cut off? Why do you immortal Tianzong? The green robe messenger shuddered, his face suddenly pale, and he couldn't dare to raise his head to look at the little emperor. Chapter 4856. He couldn't believe that the son of immortal territory had been killed, but the initiator was still so indifferent that he didn't take immortal territory at all. His Royal Highness, aren't you afraid that the entire immortal realm Tianzong will fight you with blood? The green robe messenger said tremblingly, with a painful expression in his eyes. The little emperor smiled. Xiu said that you are a fairy in Tianxian, that is, there are 10 more, why am I afraid? Okay, since you are not afraid, then. Without finishing his sentence, he was clamped by the thin purple robe in the dark, and then directly smashed Xian Yuan. Like the same hand holding fly ash, the emperor of the green robe fell. It's really noisy. The little emperor slowly turned around and lay down on the bed again. He propped his head in one hand, his other hand lurched into his arms, and took out a pill that glowed with colorful rainbow. It took a long time to say, "Ma'am, how do you have this pill, Jian Wushuang?" The thin purple robe stepped forward slowly. "His Royal Highness, everyone has their own secrets. Don't ask until he tells you." "Got it, you have to call Wushuang and discuss the countermeasures together. Although I don't take it in the eyes of the Celestial Emperor Tianzong, it is inevitable to want a battle. I want to minimize the loss." The thin purple robe promised and then turned away. Looking at the mysterious Danmaru in his hand, Xiaodaijin fell silent. "Wushuang, Wushuang, when can I see through your mind?" As the foggy night approached, Jian Wushuang stepped into the air, and his shoulders were soaked by drops of mist and rain. "Brother Jian, you are here." The little emperor seemed to have been waiting for a long time, and he walked to him with a large black feather cloak, and at the same time he was going to put it on. Jian Wushuang prevented his behavior, but took Dalu and put it in his hands. He went straight to the theme. "The kid you beheaded is the son of Tianzong from a fairyland?" "Yes," Xiaodaijin nodded. "The power of Tianzong in the fairyland is pretty good in the eyes of the big division. After several years of development, Yanxian and Yending are very many." He said that he had told Jian Wushuang the connection between the ins and outs of the matter and Dami Tian. In the end, he looked at Jian Wushuang. "If this is not completely defeated this time, I'm afraid Zhang Tian will lead the entire fairy field and throw it to the grandson of the sun." Jian Wushuang didn't open his mouth. It seemed to be thinking about something. "If this war starts, we must make plans to completely destroy the celestial realm Tianzong?" "Yes, once the war starts, it means declaring war on me, and I cannot and will not tolerate it." Xiao Dijuan said, gently putting his palm on his arm, "Brother Jian, help me once." "Okay." Jian Wushuang responded. Killing Zhang Shen is the critical point of the outbreak of war. No matter what the little emperor thought, it was for him. The little emperor heard the words and smiled, arching his hands. "Thank you, Jian Xiong." "When?" "Slowly, maybe half a year, and soon will be several months. We have to make preparations early." He said, "My seat is Yanxian, being intercepted again and again. Wasted. So, I want to temporarily invite Brother Jian to take the position of Dadiangwen and crush them all into scum." Jian Wushuang listened, just wanted to reject this title, and was blocked by Xiaodaijin. "Brother Jian, please take up the post of Dadiangwen, it is only temporary. It is responsible for the control of 60 Yanxian, not the position of Datiangwen. This battle is over, you can step down at any time." "Well, I will be there then." Jian Wushuang nodded. "If there is nothing, I will go." "Brother Jian, what happened to me the other day is wrong, and I am going to indemnify you today." The little emperor said, suddenly pulled out a soft sword around his waist, and then slashed to the left arm. The sword did not fall, and was blocked by the sword Wushuang. "If you have the strength, you will respond more in the following crisis. It is inevitable that the sword will be injured. If you stick to this again, you will have no demeanor." After he finished speaking, he turned and left Tiangong. Looking at the back of Jian Wushuang's departure, Xiao Emperor's eyes flashed an unknown meaning. For a while, he looked down at the wrist of his right hand, and had a rather strange feeling, like a kind of induction. Several months passed, but the 6-day realm of peace was also caught in some kind of turmoil, and the dynamism in the void was a little agitated. Nearly half a year later, dozens of powerful bodies like streamers flew from the void. Then, in front of the void in the 6th-sky realm, the dozens of figures began to use the force of force to quickly outline a ripple in the void. That's constructing a fairy array that can be sent on a large scale. Standing above the dome of the heavenly palace in Degushan, the little emperor stood with his hands on his back, and behind him stood nearly 60 imposing immortals, and the top army that covered the sky like black mist. These are his details. "Please, Dadiangwen, come." He condensed. "Your Highness, Jian Tianguan is here." The thin purple robe whispered. "Heaven and earth are still, and the 5 bodies are breaking through the fairy cloud and reaching." All Yan Xian and Ding Xiu's eyes were attracted. As the leader of Jian Wushuang, dressed in a black shirt ranger, Mei Yu Jian is full of perseverance and indifference. Behind him, Qin Qing, Chuanqiu, Cui Jing, and Wei Liujia stood side by side, all of which had the tendency of Yuanzhu Yuezhi. This is Dai Tianguan who was decided by the little emperor a few days ago? It looks too immature, right? No, our entire six-day realm, haven't we ever established the position of Dai Tianguan, and Xiaodigen has never set a precedent. Regardless of what he does, then the battlefield will be clear, and if he can become a big official, how could he be a mediocre? Hearing the whispering in his ear, Jian Wushuang did not care, and quickly went to the little emperor. I've seen Jian Tianguan. Nearly 60 yenxian, and countless top repairs at the same time loudly, sounded Zhou Xiao. Faced with such a situation, Jian Wushuang is at ease, and he has seen it seriously. Little Emperor smiled, then stretched out his palm and pointed forward. Brother Jian, look at it. Looking through the eyes, I saw that in front of the void portal of the Sixth Heaven realm, one side of the celestial array was outlined and condensed. As soon as this fairy array comes out, it must be the battle of the power of heaven. With the completion of the cohesion of the fairy array, a total of more than 30 yen xian who hit the front station, at the same time release the yen force, urged the fairy array. The beam of light leads to the sky as if a dusty sky gate was opened. With the rise of countless wamangs, the army of top repairs like black clouds came out of the fairy array, and the intention of killing was almost solid. The little emperor shouted loudly, from now on, all Yenxian here must obey Jian Tianguan's order. If there is a violation, die on this battlefield. Promise! All Yenxian promised, and the atmosphere of the void was solemn. Chapter 4857. This super fairy land Tianzong, which spans several heavens and has accumulated for many years, has a very terrible background. It can be seen by the courage to fight the son of the emperor. With the cloud-like top repair and the continuous appearance of dozens of Yenxian, it can be expected that this will be an endless situation. Then there will be Brother Luo Jian, fight with me. Xiao Dijuan whispered. Jian Wushuang nodded his head, his eyes looked forward. With countless top repairs and Yenxian stepping out of the fairy array, the void has become a battlefield. When the fairy array was about to close, there was a straddle mount riding a Tianma, holding a towering figure of a golden gun. With his appearance, the indescribable trend is rising. That is the master of the celestial realm, Zhang Tian. Long ago, it was the peak of Yenxian. Xiao Dijuan said softly. Jian Wushuang nodded, and then he no longer hesitated, his feet walked in the air, like a star, running forward. Afterwards, Chun Qing and others carried all Yenxian together and rushed outside the portal of the Sixth Heaven realm. One step into the void, the violent gang wind ripped to the ground. The majestic figure sitting on top of Tianzhu also stepped into the air. Without saying a word, the arm holding the golden gun flicked a full circle, like a bow and arrow, and suddenly threw the golden gun. The golden gun trembles, coming out of the air, and the goal is directed at the unparalleled sword, 1,000,000 miles. Jian Wushuang's gaze was fixed, and his breath was steep. Then he raised his right hand and pointed out with a finger. Fairy style, a little mountain and river. It seems that there is a power beyond the reach of the supreme god peak, combined with the fierce surging power of the giant water, and the blue color and the black color coexist, surging at Jian Wushuang's fingertips, turning into a party. The two collided, and an unparalleled martyrdom broke out. At this moment, both Yen Xian and Ding Xiu subconsciously covered their eyes with their arms. The golden gun was violent and unstoppable like a dragon, but after touching that layer of enchantment, it could no longer move forward. Despite the martyrdom, everything is within the controllable range of Jian Wushuang. As Guanghua dispersed, the golden spear finally fell into his hands. Zhang Tian, the main body of the immortal Tianzong, looked at this scene with dignified eyes. He underestimated his enemies, and thought to come up and kill a lot of Yenxian, increasing his morale, but he never expected that Yenxian could catch his blow, and it seemed a little bit. No injuries were received. You know, his shot is enough to penetrate a common heaven. Even if Yenxian in the same realm can only avoid the sharp edge, Yenxian has never dared to face it. But now, not only did his blow not work, but he was caught. This Yan Xian who can stand at the forefront is absolutely extraordinary. Looking at the spear still trembling in his hand, Jian Wushuang said loudly, "If you only have this strength, go back." Zhang Tian's face sank, and the painful murderous opportunity appeared in his eyes. "Go back? Who will return my son Zhang Shun's life? Even today, even if I'm struggling to die, I will let my son taste the price, and as a result of Yongzi Yen, you stubborn rat, come out to see this seat, and pay for my son's life." With a loud explosion, Gongzi Yan's figure followed, and stood side by side with Jian Wushuang. He looked at Zhang Tian with a smile. "Only stupid people will do stupid things. I have beaten you secretly how many times? You should be clear, but never minded. The reason why your son Zhang Shen will have today is not only inseparable from his own blame, but also inseparable from your actions." Zhang Tianwen said with pain, "But even then, you shouldn't kill him. Fujia was in the death of heaven, and I endured it, but the result of Zhang Shen's death must be up and down in my fairyland, and you never die." Little Emperor slowly raised the corner of his mouth. "Well then, I have been waiting for a long time this day. I want to see how the guys who are eager to correct the dogs for the sons, how hard they bite." Zhang Tian was very angry and smiled. No, today, even if I die, I will take your son to be buried," he said, suddenly withdrawing the real sword hanging from his waist. "All the orders from the immortal realm, all the forces to kill the Master Xian, one will not stay. Void concussion, battle begins." Almost at the same time, Jian Wushuang said loudly, "All Yanxian scattered into 6 columns, follow me." More than 60 Yanxian diverged into 6 columns. Jian Wushuang leads the ranks, the young emperor's son Yan leads the ranks, Chen Qing, Chuanqiu, Cui Jing, and Wei Liujia each lead a rank. Sword Wushuang is like a real sword without a pair of swords, carrying the trend of crossing the ages, and ruthlessly entered the front of the battle. With both palms pushed horizontally, the unmatched Yan Yan made nearly 20 Yan Xian all retreat a few steps. Afterwards, Chen Qingshan's sword approached, and a sword smashed a fairy source, and at the same time, relying on the divine peak's figure, he ran into it without fear. Chuanqiu held a black light dagger, and he was blessed with an 8-armed puppet, which was also extremely fast. Cui Jing has always been fierce and aggressive, even in the original Sand Devil Cave. He can be alone in the realm of ancestry. Now that he has been promoted to the position of Yanxian, the ferocity does not diminish the original, but it is, in addition to Qin Qing, the most destructive existence. As for Wei Liujia, the realm's strength can only be recovered. Naturally, there is no benefit in this battle. If it is not for the help of the sword Wushuang from time to time, I am afraid that I will drink on the spot. In fact, at the beginning, Qin Qing and Spring and Autumn came together. Jian Wushuang did not agree to come down, but could not help but grind hard, and finally let them come. Due to the loss of his real life, I Ching's strength was far from being restored. He was placed in dormancy in Xiaogushan by Jian Wushuang. Zhao Ting's uncontrollable factors were too great, so she did not let her come. Therefore, Jian Wushuang brought them 4. The battle that has surpassed 100 Yanxian is extremely tragic. After the various moves came out, a fairy corpse with a broken fairy source fell. Jian Wushuang's destructive power is too strong, he just reached out a little, and died with a Yan Xian. Under Dian Xian, he is invincible. With the immortal blessings of a little mountain and river, no Yan Xian can take a few rounds with Jian Wushuang. He is far more powerful than when attending the Feast of Heaven. He was moving forward firmly. Behind him was the little emperor, accompanied by Qin Qing and others, full of unstoppable momentum. 5 fingers close together, directly killing a Yan Xian who was standing in front of him, Jian Wushuang's eyes met with the majestic figure sitting on Tianju. "If you don't want to die, just go back." His voice passed into Zhen Tian's ear through Zhen Tian's fight. Chapter 48-58. Zhang Tian, who was sitting on Tianju, shuddered slightly. He looked at the ranger young man who was walking towards him, and inexplicably felt an indescribable pressure. Jian Wushuang holds an invisible sword in his right hand, and a golden gun with a long length in his left hand. Even the Yanxian who are in chaos and slaying either intentionally or unintentionally, moved away from this of killing, leaving a way out. But soon Zhang Tian's eyes were filled with resentment and madness. My son Zhang Shen died in such an unknown way, can't my father's revenge even be reported? Hugh said that his son is a child the emperor, even the emperor, I have to get a fair one today. This justice, you can't get it back. Take the remaining forces and return to rest and recuperate. Jian Wushuang said lightly, Zhang Shen's death, you deserve it. A good sin deserves it. Under the sky, who dares to condemn my son? He shouted in exasperation and slammed into the face of him. The big palm covered by Yanli smashed down, Jian Wushuang's eyes narrowed slightly, and he stabbed directly in front of the gun. The two fought, stirring up layers of golden awns. A shot pierced the cover of the sky and covered the palm of the sky. His castration continued. His whole body seemed to be integrated with the long gun in his hand, with an imposing momentum, stabbed to Zhang Tian. Zhang Tian was shocked in his heart, and the majestic figure sitting on Tianma's back was almost subconsciously leaning back. The spear reached, and Tianju hissed upwards. It was just a shot. The sharp point of the gun pierced through Tianma's thick neck, and finally the whole one did not enter. After trembling the tip of the gun from Zhang Tian's throat, he stopped completely. Tianju's last low hissing sound pushed Jinshan down into the void like a jade pillar. Zhang Tian's eyes were distressed. Fei leapt from Tianju's back, grasping the spear covered with red blood with one hand, and used a return carbine. Jian Wushuang resisted at the right time, and the violent roar resounded. Zhang Tian's powerful gun made Jian Wushuang feel the pain in the tiger's mouth. Don't be the accomplice of Gong Ziyan anymore. Read that you are not the one who killed my son and leave now. He held a spear and fought against Wushuang in front of him. The whole body could not bear the strength and shattered. One sword releases 3,000 sword intentions. The majestic and powerful sword style rises violently, and with an irresistible momentum, Zhang Tian is forced to retreat. Then the sword stood without a sword, his eyes calm and deep. Everyone who is on the battlefield has nothing but two possibilities. One is death and the other is victory. Which one do you think I will choose? Zhang Tianhe looked directly at him, not only looked dignified. He saw a lot in his eyes, perseverance, calmness, as if there was a feeling that everything was clear to the chest. This feeling is as if they are determined to eat. Who is this son? On this battlefield, even the Prince Yen, who is a prince, will listen to him. He had a hunch that if he continued to fight like this, the fairyland would eventually be fragmented. But Zhang Tian was not reconciled. The death of his son Zhang Shen was like a thorn stabbed into his heart. There was only one son under his seat. Now that he is dead, how could he shake hands with the enemy who killed the child? He has made up his mind secretly, even if he fights to break the fairy field, he will also eat a piece of meat from the sun. No matter what kind of you are, today you will inevitably die here. Zhang Tian shouted angrily, holding a high gun in his hand. My celestial realm Tianzong, why fear this battle? Even if it all fell, there is also a lot of fire, and it goes back and forth. The high-pitched voice is like the sky thunder, which is injected into the heart of Yen Xian and Ding Xiu in each fairy field, and the most rapid counterattack has erupted suddenly. Even if the ancestor-level top repairs go to the top again, for Yen Xian who already has Xianyuan Xianzhen, they can't cause effective damage. So they made a move, nearly 100 people, formed a system of rushing to a group of Yen Xian, and then spontaneously broke the source, and broke out a tragic martyrdom. For a time, the original disadvantage was relieved instantly. The void is completely shaken and broken. Thousands of people have broken the source of repair, and they have already detached their cognition. Even though Yen Xian can still survive this martyrdom, but after being disturbed by the mind, it is extremely easy to be killed by Yen Xian in the fairy field. The Yen Xian from the Sixth Heaven realm, as well as the ancestors, began to suffer casualties. Nearly 10 Yen Xian in the periphery all died out in an instant, and even the formation has been faintly washed down. Wushuang, The situation is urgent. Xiaotajin passed on, anxiously. Jian Wushuang's eyes flicked, and a 7-star system circulated quietly between the eyebrows, and then his arms rose suddenly. As his palms lifted up, countless rugged mountains rose from the void without any signs. 1, 10, 100. Each of the Shunshans scattered the original ferocious fairy field Yenxian, or the top repair, and blocked it out, so that the Yenxian camp in the 6th heaven realm was breathed. Seeing this scene, Zhang Tian couldn't help but feel shocked. If the young immortal in front of him does not get rid of it, it will inevitably have a major impact on the entire fairyland. Thinking of this, he no longer hesitated, directly pointed the gun forward, and launched the most violent offensive towards Jian Wushuang. Handless invisible sword, Jian Wushuang walked slowly, facing Zhang Tian, who was even taller than Qinqing, like a giant. He had no fear. Wushuang Kendo, Xinggehujianjian. The first form, star. When this revealing and shining pattern lights up, it shows that Jian Wushuang has begun to take it seriously. This sword is the cornerstone of the entire unparalleled swordsmanship, and its majesty is its original meaning. Zhang Tian, who had originally come from the gun, saw this scene and hurriedly turned the offense into a defense, and responded with all his strength. Hundreds of pillars tore the void, headed by Zhang Tian, exploded in the camp of immortal territory, and then teared open a hole. Full-hearted rush. Chen Qing roared with his real sword high. Yu read books www. Akanshu. Calm and then moved forward. Holding a soft sword, Xiao Dijuan kept harvesting Yang Xianyuan who dared to approach. Chuanxiu and Cui Jing are shoulder to shoulder, and they are blessed with 8 armed puppets, which is also expanding Shanghai. Only Wei Lujia, who looked like a downright scholar, was quite struggling during the battle. He was surrounded by dangers several times, but he still clenched his teeth and walked towards the sword in front. The advantage of Xinyu is no longer, and it is forced to retreat at a speed that is visible to the naked eye. Several pieces of armor on Zhang Tian's body have been damaged after a sword of Xinghe Lake. And Jian Wushuang did not pause at all. He held an invisible sword and swept up into the void, entangled with him. Swords of unparalleled sword are magnificent, wide open and wide. One sword is better than one sword. Every sword he cut was like a sword embryo, full of sparks and great momentum. Chapter 4859. Under such an offensive, Zhang Tian could only be defended, even unable to counterattack. He could only lift his spear flat, blocking the sword-to-sword cut. His heart suffocated. In just 10 breaths, Jian Wushuang slashed more than 36,000 times, causing Zhang Tianping's palm to raise his spear to be dripped with shocking blood. He said quietly, "Release the fairy style, otherwise in your current situation, I am afraid that self-preservation is extremely difficult." Zhang Tian's eyes fluctuated, and the breath of his body suddenly changed from the previous calmness to a sharp edge. Thousands of Qi Jinhuamang burst out of his hand with a golden gun, with great majesty and pressure. Jian Wushuang was forced to retreat, and his eyes were dignified. I don't know how many years have passed since I realized the fairy style, but I still shoot 3,000 times a day, in order that all possible things will happen today. In a word, blood and hatred are in the body. No matter who is blocking, there is only one end. Zhang Tian seemed to merge with the spear in his hand, almost swallowing the void of the pillar. At this moment, the order of the avenues flowing in the void began to collapse. My fairy style is called a bitter wheel. You are not the first Yenxian you saw, and you will never be the last. At the same time, I also have a hunch that if you end up under my fairy style will be melted, and I will enter the realm of Dian Fairy. Jian Wushuang's eyebrows were slightly raised, and the invisible sword was tilted in his hand. It's useless to say more, come on. The red-golden stanchion rose up into the sky, dispelling the violent wind in the void. Zhang Tian was dancing wildly behind his back. The golden gun was clear in his hand, and a golden wheel over 1,000,000 feet high emerged from his back and distributed. There is a strong and untouchable breath. All Yenxian and Dingxiu, back away! Jian Wushuang shouted loudly. The Yen who were still fighting each other did not hesitate and immediately retreated. At this moment, Chen Qing's eyes were dignified, and he could feel that Zhang Tian's blow might not even allow him to respond. Jian Wushuang, is it okay? All Yanxian and Ding Xiu looked at this scene solemnly. This way of determining the outcome, no matter who wins or loses, it is very important. Bitter wheel, cover the sky. With Zhang Tian's binge drinking, the light wheel with a height of over 1,000,000 feet behind him sank and fell, and the void collapsed, and all the top repairs and even Yanxian were shocked to see this scene. This side light wheel is really too vast. Almost at the moment of coming, it covers 1,000,000 miles of void. Even if it is Yanxian under this immortal style, I am afraid that all will be extinct. Jian Wushuang stood in situ, looking at the light wheel facing down, his eyes calm. Buzz! The hum of Hong Zongdalu resounded in the void, and the red-golden Huamang swallowed everything almost instantly. The pupil of the little emperor who had receded far away suddenly shrank, and the subconscious would fly forward. Qin Qing grabbed him. Little emperor, calm down, brother Jian will not fall like this. Even if it is impossible to fall like this, but he is too risky to do so. Xiao Dijuan took a deep breath, then stared forward. 1,000,000 feet of suffering will halo completely swallowed and covered the sword Wushuang, while Zhang Tian's arm shuddered and threw his spear into the void. In a flash, 100,000 spears were differentiated, each of them buzzing bursts. Go with! He shouted, 100,000 lances, smashed the void, and stabbed from all directions to the center of Kulun. In the opinion of all top repairs, the ending has become a foregone conclusion. Including Zhang Tian, the master of immortal territory, all smiled at this moment. But this smile didn't show up completely, so it froze. At the next moment, the real shadow of 100,000 lances suddenly stopped on the bitter wheel, even harder to score a half. Immediately afterwards, a real image of over 1,000,000 feet appeared. It was a real image of long hair floating, and the eyes were full of superb power. A 7-pointed galaxy in the eyebrows was slowly flowing, and the perseverance was magnificent again. That's the true shadow of Jian Wushuang, the true shadow of me. Every breathing and breathing seems to be a reincarnation in the universe, and his appearance is like the concrete embodiment of the rules and order of heaven and earth, which makes Yanxian feel the oppression. Then, the magnificent real shadow slowly stretched out his palm, lightly brushing the understatement, and 100,000 lances suspended in the void were all destroyed. And the bitter wheel that restrained Jian Wushuang's true shadow could not bear the pressure, so as to make up for the cracks. With a dazzling to ultimate light bursting, the painful wheel is broken. All Yanxian and Ding Xiu covered their eyes at this moment. When Hua Mang dissipated, everything was bleak. The huge real shadow looked down, and there was no joy or sorrow in the eyes that exuded divine power. In his palm, a red gold spear like a toothpick had broken into 2 halves. All the surviving Yanxian and Ding Xiu who survived in immortal territory subconsciously stepped back, and all faced like ashes. Zhang Tian's complexion changed again and again, which was originally impossible for a lifetime, and his proud cheeks also had no blood color. Then he suddenly vomited a large mouth of thick blood. The natal gold gun was destroyed, almost related to his fairy source, and was directly hit by unimaginable damage. The true shadow without me slowly dissipated, and the sword walked down into the air. At this moment, all Yanxian and Ding Xiu in the 6th heaven realm were in full swing. The little emperor raised his soft sword in his hand, and his voice spread throughout the void. Jian Wushuang looked at Zhang Tian, who was so desperate, and threw a spear that had been broken into 2 in front of him. You guys have lost. Zhang Tian stared at him staring blankly, without speaking. At this time, a middle-aged Yanxian next to him suddenly took a step and stared. No, I didn't lose. Xianyu has been formed since the emperor established the Desiyu has a deep background, superior heavenly path, and lower fuse, and has not been destroyed after several disasters. Even if it is lost today, it will surely be able to never get rid of it. Looking at the middle-aged Yanxian who was still in a hurry, and Jian Wushuang could not help but look at it a bit. After saying that, The middle-aged Yenxian helped Zhang Tian and said softly, "Sectmaster, after the rest of the old brothers broke up for you, you immediately go back to the fairyland and ask the emperor for help. Life is still there, and everything has a picture." Zhang Tian looked at him, and before he spoke, he was pushed directly by his luck, and it was in the fairy array in the void and disappeared. After doing all this, the middle-aged Yenxian was also quite indifferent, withdrawing the real sword from the waist and facing the sword without fear. "What's your name?" "I'm going to die immediately, even if I tell you," Song Exen. "Yes, I will remember you." Jian Wushuang nodded, an invisible sword quietly condensed in his hand. Chapter 4860. The head of the Yenxian named Song Exen was finally cut off by Jian Wushuang, and even the Xianyuan was broken. This is like the final beginning, marking the vengeance of the celestial domain Tianzong, which ultimately failed completely. A total of 72 immortals came from the immortal realm, none of them survived, and all of them died. With the destruction of the immortal cultivators, all the top repairmen from the immortal domain also fled, rushing to flee into the teleporting immortal formation. The shattered void was covered with broken corpses and dripping blood. Standing in front of the immortal formation, Jian Wushuang stopped moving forward. Xiao Dijuan, who was stained with blood, came to his side, his chest undulating. Qin Qing, Chun Qiu, Cui Jing, Wei Liujia and others also arrived, all in a panic. Xiao Dijuan looked at Jian Wushuang who was standing still, and he had already realized something in his heart. After a while, he whispered, "Brother Jian, it was not my intention to step down on the immortal domain, but after Zhang Tian returns, he will inevitably cast his clan to the young man for correction. By then, I am afraid that the six-day realm will be the same as the fate of northern Tianxianzu. The beginning of this battle means that there is absolutely no possibility of a good end." After a long while, Jian Wushuang said, "Let's go." The teleporting immortal array built by the celestial domain Tianzong can transmit tens of thousands of top repairs at a time and is extremely stable. When the remaining Xinyu top repairers fled back to the Xinyu embarrassedly, they didn't know that a complete destruction was also quietly coming. As the first Yenxian from the six-day realm set foot in the fairyland, the cold-blooded killing began. Blood and fire erupted in the fairyland that spanned nearly 10 super-universes. Countless creatures were directly crushed into powder under the hands of the immortals. The continental plate was destroyed, mountains and rivers were cut across. The dark clouds were in the sky, and the rain came suddenly. There are nearly 10 super-universes, including nearly 100 continental plates, and each seat surface is a world. And under the influence of this war, everything is shattering. Chen Qing held a true sword in his hand and completely destroyed a heaven with his own power. But Chuanqiu, Cui Jing, and Wei Liujia did not make a move, but stood quietly behind Jian Wushuang. The entire Xinyu Tianzong was destroyed at a speed visible to the naked eye. Sitting on a towering sacred mountain in the clouds, there is a quiet hall, which is the most mysterious place in the entire celestial sect of the immortal territory, and the dojo of the entire sect. But right now, it is already chaotic. "Sectmaster, hurry up, let's leave and go to the Second Highness. Leave the Green Hills, don't worry about no firewood, instead of coexisting and dying in this same fairyland, it is better to leave as soon as possible and make plans." In some dim halls, more than a dozen elders Yenxian looked anxious and worried, talking about the figure lying halfway in the hall. That figure is exactly Zhang Tian who fled back to the fairyland. At this moment, he seemed to be old to another state, with his eyelids drooping. After a long time, he said in a hoarse voice, "You all go first, I will be there later." All the elders stopped talking, and looked at Zhang Tian alike, and a little uncertain. "Let's all go. It's too late if you don't go." "The sect master. I'll go ahead and stand up for you." When the dim hall returned to silence, Zhang Tiankai slowly raised his eyelids, and then looked outside the hall. There were 6 body shapes condensed, and then slowly stepped into the hall. Jian Wushuang and Xiao Dijuan walked in front side by side, and finally stood in front of him. A sneer flashed in his eyes, I really didn't expect that the son of the dignified emperor would kill a party of the immortal territory heavenly sect to such a situation. It is indeed a must. All of this is just your own fault. You have to think about what happened on this day when you fight me. But is the price reasonable? It's too heavy. You shouldn't destroy my entire fairyland. Zhang Tian said desperately, I am destroying the Xianyuan now, and changing the fairyland to save it, how about? Xiaodaijin slowly squatted down, staring at him, saying every word, you must die. As for Xinyu, I will make it a non-threatening existence. Zhang Tian's figure trembled, and then closed his eyes as if admitting his fate. Young Master Yen, you remember what I said, one day you will inevitably follow my mistakes. Jian Wushuang slowly turned around and walked outside the hall, not watching the scene again. Zhang Tian, the lord of a generation of celestial sect, understands the source of immortality by himself, and his body is gone. Xiaodaijin straightened up, then turned around, looking at Jian Wushuang who was leaving. A complex color flashed deep in his eyes. Under the dispatch of nearly 40 evangelists and countless ancestor-level Dingxiu, the celestial sect of the immortal territory, which encompasses nearly 10 celestial regions, has become a dead place and no longer constitutes any threat. Walking in the scorched earth, Jian Wushuang didn't say a word. Just when they were about to leave, they suddenly ran out of a ruined wall and a half-large figure. She shivered, but she still stood firmly in front of Jian Wushuang. Did you ruin this place? Did you kill my dad? Chen Qinggang wanted to wave his hand to disperse this gray-headed little girl, but was stopped by Jian Wushuang. Then he bent over slightly, looked at the little girl who tried to keep the tears in his eyes from falling, and asked, What is your name? The little girl took a half-step back, sniffed hard, and said, I won't tell you, I will be killed as soon as I tell you. Jian Wushuang smiled slightly and then said, Then you have to remember clearly. My name is Jian Wushuang. If you want to avenge all this today, just find me. After he finished speaking, Chen Qing took a few people and left the fairyland that had become scorched earth. Standing among the ruined walls, the little girl looked at Jian Wushuang's back without blinking, as if to imprint all his characteristics into her mind. Jian Wushuang, I took it down, I will kill you myself in the future. After the immortal formation of Unicom's six-day realm was destroyed, this battle also came to an end. More than 60 people who participated in the battle under the Emperor Sovereign only lost nearly 20 places. This is a big victory. Compared with the Celestial Sect, the loss is almost negligible. And this big victory was almost so quick with Jian Wushuang's own power. According to Xiao Daijin's previous plan, the 100 Yenxian he sat down will almost be destroyed, and he will not be able to crush the celestial domain Tianzong. But everything, since Jian Wushuang joined the battle, has changed drastically. He almost wiped out a place of great trouble with the smallest loss, which is undoubtedly worse for young Master Jiu who is far away. In the palace, above the eaves, Xiao Dijuan sat on the glazed tiles, his eyes wondering where he was looking. Behind him, a thin purple robe appeared soon. My big companion, this time the result is very good, but I am a little worried. Chapter 4861. The thin purple robe said, Are you worried Jian Wushuang will grow up to the day when he will even be terrified? Xiaodaijin nodded. Yes, and I feel that that day will come soon. His Royal Highness, there is no need to worry. Although I have met him only a few times so far, you must know that we have been together for decades. His temperament and character, I can't guess it, but I can see that he is a tyrant, and he is very indifferent to the search for the Emperor's luck. He seems to have a certain purpose, like a hurried passerby, let anyone I can't guess him. At this point, the thin purple robe slowly pulled down his hood, revealing a gully face. He is an existence capable of reversing any situation, and his presence will only benefit His Royal Highness. I understand, Xiaodaijin nodded slightly, but I have a feeling that he is very mysterious, as if he didn't know where he came from. If you know his origins and weaknesses, that would be great. Nothing. His Royal Highness, this is not the time to calculate this. Since he has promised to help you win the throne, you must do as much as possible during this time. The thin purple robe leaned slightly, now that the 5 emperors have fallen from the ink, and the second emperor has been more than half destroyed, the situation has changed. I think the other emperors will do something next. There was a sneer at the corner of Xiao Daijin's mouth. It's just a mob. One more thing. What's the matter? Emperor Zhen Weiyang sent envoys some time ago to invite the rest of the emperors to go to the heavenly court to the birthday banquet. Birthday banquet? Didn't the emperor never miss his birthday? Why is it just over this year? Maybe it's because of the death of the 5 emperors. How long is there? 3 years later. Then get ready to go to heaven again. From the broken fairyland Tianzong, back to Ziyuxian, Jian Wushuang sat down in the middle of the square in front of the palace. He faintly touched the second fairy style. There are 7 types of fairy style guidance from Shizhu. The first type is called a little mountain and river. As for the second form, I realized it not long ago in the immortal style of Zhang Tian. The true shadow, which is more than 1 million feet high, is very unique from the treasure that Jian Wushuang condenses when he releases the sword intent of Xinghe Lake. When Jian Wushuang released the true shadow, the immortal body was ethereal and turned into nothing, but his spiritual consciousness was still clear and coexisted with the true shadow. Moreover, under the blessing of the true shadow state, any of his skills has reached a level of detachment. Therefore, after Jian Wushuang rehearsed the second immortal style tens of thousands of times in the divine consciousness, he called the second immortal style the true shadow of no self. Now that he holds 2 immortal styles in his hand, his strength is even more unfathomable, and he even has the idea of fighting against a higher-level Dayan Immortal. However, the Dayan Immortal in the entire Daisai domain has become one of the few after that battle. I am afraid that only Dayan Immortal can be found under the true Wuyang seat. After consolidating ancestral skills, kendo, and immortal style, Jian Wushuang re-enlightened sitting. Now that Demission has been destroyed more than half, it is no different from climbing to the sky to find Yin Ling again, and the piece of sky-shaped bone armor in her hand. I am afraid that I will not see it again for a long time. At present, the sword does not hold 2 pieces of bone armor with the sky pattern in both hands, but he cannot decipher the cipher text above. He planned to travel around Wanyu shortly after this, preparing to find a powerful person who could decipher the cipher text on the bone armor of the Tianzi pattern. And shortly after he sat down, the whole Shaogudian and the main hall trembled. Although it was extremely subtle, everyone was aware of it. Lying on the top of the eaves, Qin Qing was asleep, turned over and jumped down. Several people in spring and autumn rushed out from the hall. What happened? Cui Jing tightened his belt, his face solemn. Damn it, maybe something happened again in the next 3 days? Qin Qing scratched his head. What can happen in the next 3 days? Could it be that the collapse can't be done? Chun Qiu frowned, and he had no good feelings for the next 3 days, and even wished to destroy it directly. Chen Qing did not hear the displeasure in his words, and explained, the situation that will occur in the next 3 days is much more serious than the collapse. Every time, many prisoners will die, which is very difficult. Jian Wushuang slowly opened his eyes, then looked at Chen Qing and asked, what will happen? When Chen Qing heard this, he did not hide his words. Black qi, the black qi that can swallow the power, the deeper the black mountain spar is mined, the black qi will be unearthed. This kind of black energy can swallow the power. Even if Yenxian is infected with this kind of black energy, he can only sit and wait to die. It is terrifying. But fortunately, not much black energy has been dug up. As long as it is sealed in time, there is nothing to do. However, this situation has never happened before, and I don't know what has happened in the past few years. Everything has become more and more unstable. Jian Wushuang didn't think too much, and was ready to continue to sit and meditate. But then, several streamer-like figures entered Shaogudian and came directly in front of him. The leader was Xiao Dijuan. His expression slightly changed. Brother Jian, there are some situations in the next 3 days. I want to invite you to find out. Chen Qing was also anxious. Is the situation happening again in the next 3 days? Didn't I remember that it calmed down a few days ago? Xiaodijin shook his head. This time, I am afraid it is the most dangerous one. Then let's go together, Qin Qing said, before flying out first. Jian Wushuang nodded, then go take a look. Xiaodijin nodded and then led the way. At this time, Chun Qiu also came behind Jian Wushuang and whispered, I will go too. This time, you don't want to go, just keep Xianyuan more stable. Jian Wushuang patted him on the shoulder, then walked away. Soaring out of Xiaogushan, under the guidance of Xiaodijin, he began to rush down for 3 days. The 6-day realm that Xiaodijin is in charge of, the entire next 3 days are all Haishan's realm, and countless prisoners are responsible for the continuous mining of Heishan spar. When he first entered Daanhuan, Jian Wushuang was trapped, and was somehow a prisoner for a long time, so he was extremely repelled for the next 3 days. This time, what happened was the first horizon of the next 3 days. From the mouth of the little emperor, I learned that the first heaven at this moment has undergone tremendous changes, and almost all the prisoners and supervisors responsible for mining the spar have been swallowed by the black energy gushing from the abyss, turning the entire first heaven domain into a dead domain with no survivors. Chapter 4862. Chen Qing's complexion was extremely serious, and he naturally knew the seriousness of this. The black energy that broke out in the Black Mountain several times before was solved by him. Each time the black energy was extremely small, the most one time, it only swallowed the prisoners and supervisors in the entire Black Mountain. But this time, the eruption of black energy actually swallowed all the creatures in the entire heaven. This shows the severity of the situation. With this in mind, he reminded Jian Wushuangdo, Brother Sword, those black qi is extremely easy to contaminate the power. Once it is contaminated, it is difficult to remove, so when you get to the place, try not to use the power if you can. Jian Wushuang nodded slightly, looking forward through the void, the heaven plane that faintly reveals dark luck. Stepping into the first heaven of the next 3 days, an indescribable breath of death rushed toward his face. Looking around, there are many mountains and mountains, like the undulating black mountain that stretches to the invisible end. The black air, like a dark cloud, swallowed every inch of the space, hazy and chaotic to the extreme. The 4 body shapes all converged and walked forward step by step. Both Xiao Dijuan and Qin Qing showed an unbearable expression, as if they were overwhelmed by some unknown force. But Jian Wushuang's face was indifferent, as if he hadn't been affected in any way. Walking in the soaring sky, the breath of death is lingering. The bones of prisoners everywhere are all lying on the ground, and they all turn into black dust when the wind blows, which is extremely strange. Little monarch, it seems that this first heavenly realm is indeed completely destroyed. Chen Qingning looked forward and said, in this way, it would be extremely troublesome to find the source. The little emperor who was walking in the front did not speak. He also felt the trouble. This was the first time he encountered this situation. Since he took over the Black Mountain realm in the next 3 days, there hasn't been any bad sign since he took over at a young age, and it has continued to this day. But in the last few Chinese years, black energy began to appear in the Montenegrin realm, and the scope of each appearance was not large, at most spreading to a Montenegro. But today, the black energy that didn't know where it started swallowed a whole heaven, and none of the creatures here survived. At this time, Jian Wushuang, who had not spoken, said, I think, just along the direction of the prisoners' bodies on the ground, you should be able to find the source. Xiaodijin looked at the prisoner's corpse lying on the ground, like a looming road, stretching far away. It's not advisable to stay here for a long time. Let's make a quick fight, he said before taking the lead. Because he couldn't use his power, he moved slowly. And the more you move forward, shocking scenes appear one after another. The corpses of the dead prisoners are piled up like a mountain, almost spreading far away. Moreover, the death of these prisoners was very strange. All the clothes on their bodies disappeared, and the exposed bodies became dry bones densely covered with black threads. Jian Wushuang frowned slightly. What exactly is the so-called black energy that would have such an impact on living beings? You must know that the prisoners trapped in the Black Mountain are at least half ancestral top repairers. Even if the chain between their necks trapped them, they did not make any resistance moves, which is too weird. Could it be that this black energy has a restraining effect on Yanli? He slowly stretched out his palm, stroking the black energy flowing in the void. The black chi is cold, with a kind of palpitating aura. It seems that it does not seem to belong to the product of this heaven. Retracting their hearts, they kept passing through a mountain of corpses piled up by prisoners' bones. When stepping past the tallest corpse mountain, a black abyss like a deep prison appeared in Jian Wushuang's eyes. Endless black air spit out from the vast and endless abyss. Even if it is Yenxian, standing in front of this abyss has a very small feeling. The black mountains that had already collapsed were leaning into the abyss, and the abyss was still expanding and stretching, and the prisoners' corpses also fell into it. When is there such an abyss in this first heaven? Qin Qing asked in shock. Xiao Dijuan frowned. It seems that all the black energy is gushing from the depths of this collapsed underground. What shall we do next? Qin Qing asked again. I am afraid that there are only a few of us in such a deep abyss, and it is impossible to reseal it. In the end, Xiao Dijuan shook his head disappointedly. It can only be so, let's go back now. The weirdness of the first heaven territory in these 3 days was destroyed, so that he did not dare to check it out again. After making a decision, they are ready to leave. But as he turned around, there was a palpitating heart that made Jian Wushuang subconsciously turn his head back. The black energy that was originally thick in the air quietly turned into a vortex and began to rotate slowly. Run, he suddenly shouted, reminding. But everything was already too late. Almost at the same time that Jian Wushuang's voice fell, the vortex condensed by the black energy turned crazy. The towering black mountains suddenly broke apart and were sucked into them by the crazy vortex. And Jian Wushuang and others were swallowed by that unimaginable suction for the first time. The dark clouds were connected to the ground, and the entire deadly first heaven seemed to fall under the black abyss prison. Being caught in the vortex, Jian Wushuang only felt a whirl of heaven and earth, and he was extremely passive because he could not run his energy. The condition of the little emperor, the thin purple robe, and Qin Qing were also not much better. They were almost swallowed and disappeared without a trace. Suffocating the dizziness, Jian Wushuang opened his eyes in the vortex. Looking around, there is endless darkness. Yu reading www.akanshu. Calm. This surging vortex kept falling, and the entire black abyss seemed to never end, without knowing where it led. I don't know how long it took. When a hard and cold touch came from under him, everything seemed to return to silence. The vortex slowly dissipated, leaving only the silent sound around. Oh, his grandma's Lao Tzu's waist. Qin Qing's painful curses resounded under the abyss. The unspeakable reverberation resembled a trembling 9-day booby thunder, blasting in the abyss. Quiet. Xiaodijan's voice immediately sounded. Standing in this black source, Jian Wushuang's eyes flashed with golden light. Although there was an unknown extremely dark world in front of him, he could still clearly see every inch of the ground and every inch of space. Under this abyss, it is completely composed of strange and irregular rocks that are completely dark and cold. Chapter 4863. And what is strange is that on these irregular and weird rocks, there are still unknown weeds with tall legs, which are endless. It is as if this was the tip of an iceberg of a world, a buried world. Although it was extremely dark under this abyss, the little emperors quickly noticed their existence and began to move closer to Jian Wushuang. God, where is this place? Are all the black mountains on the ground suspended? Qin Qing looked at the scene in front of him, somewhat shocked. It seems that this place used to be a world on the earth. I don't know why, it was buried in the heart of the earth. Xiaodijan said analytically. Jian Wushuang didn't speak. He squatted down and touched a weed slightly with his hand, instantly turning it into a fluffy ash. Qin Qing said again, weirdness is a bit weird, but fortunately, there is no threat. As long as we don't release Yanli, we can always leave here. At this time, the thin purple robe, who had not spoken, said, the road when I came here is gone. Everyone looked up subconsciously, and sure enough, there was a strange stone dome above their heads, not an upward exit. Little Emperor then looked at Jian Wushuang. Brother Jian, do you have any opinion? Go ahead. Jian Wushuang looked forward and said in a deep voice. A group of 4 people walking under this abyss. The ancient, desolate silence, weird to the extreme. Jian Wushuang walked in the forefront, his eyes becoming more solemn. He felt the throbbing in his heart inexplicably, as if something was about to happen. The weird rocks underfoot are undulating and messy. Because he was walking in the forefront, he soon understood why the throbbing in his heart had started. I saw that in front of the hazy black air, one side collapsed in the center of 100 miles of rock, kneeling down, a strange figure. Even Jian Wushuang couldn't see the figure clearly. As a result, the first heaven in the next 3 days became the source of the dead zone, and the infinite black energy that covered the sky and the sun surged from the front. Xiaodijin and the others also saw the kneeling figure for the first time. Their complexions were extremely solemn. In such an underground world that has not been sealed since when, seeing this scene, I am afraid that no one will take it lightly. That guy, isn't it the source of the disaster for the entire first domain? Qin Qing whispered. Xiaodijin narrowed his eyes and said, if it is true, then we can take this opportunity to seal it off. Don't move rashly, I'm afraid that figure will never be as calm as it is now. Jian Wushuang reminded. How could it be a dead existence that can provoke such a majestic and weird black spirit? The next moment, seemingly to confirm Jian Wushuang's thoughts, a nuanced sound of bone cracks resounded under this abyss. With the sound of this sound, the figure that was kneeling on the rocky ground suddenly trembled. Jian Wushuang's eyes condensed, and he hurriedly made Xiao Dijuan and the others retreat. No way, can this come alive too? Chen Qing was a little dumbfounded, watching this scene in disbelief. With the continuous resounding of bone cracks, the figure who was buried under the abyss, how many years of endless years, actually stood up slowly. It was a figure covered with hideous wounds, and the armor made of unknown material was completely damaged, revealing a body that had long been depleted of flesh and blood. 2 black lights shot out from the visor on his head. Facing such a dead creature, even Jian Wushuang felt his heart palpitations. Because he found that the Yanli in his body shuddered in an incredible way when facing this dead creature? This is too weird. Could it be that this silent, dead creature was also an emperor during his lifetime, was beheaded by Zhen Wuyang and buried here? But Jian Wushuang quickly rejected this idea. He had already been in close contact with the 4 emperors, and he naturally knew the unique luck of the emperor. But at the moment, this creature does not have the emperor's luck, and there is not even a trace of the fluctuation of the power. All around him, only the horrible black energy was surging. He seemed to have awakened from Wang Gus's deep sleep, and the 2 black lights immediately locked Jian Wushuang several people. Then, the dead creature slowly raised an arm, and the broken palm squeezed hard. Suddenly, the void suddenly collapsed, and the indescribable force squeezed in all directions. Except for Jian Wushuang, Xiao Dijuan, the thin purple robe, Qin Qing and the 3 snorted at the same time, as if they had been severely injured, and the corners of their mouths overflowed with a ray of blood. Damn it, it really gives me energy. Chen Qing's aura was languid, but he didn't dare to release his strength to resist. Because that black energy's restraint on Yanli almost reached the point of incomprehension, as long as there is a trace of Yanli released, it will definitely be hit hard by retrieving the original wish. The prisoners and supervisors who have died are the best examples. In such a situation, only Jian Wushuang could turn the tide. The inability to apply Yanli is an unthinkable thing for Yanxian, because even the simplest urging of Xianyuan will consume Yanli. But Jian Wushuang was affected by this, and it was much smaller. Except for the 2 ancestral arts, and the Xian-style 1-point mountain and river requires derivation, his Wushuang Kendo, Xinghuhai sword intent, and the 2nd celestial style of selfless true shadow, all do not need to be derived. Therefore, he immediately used the true shadow of the selflessness to bless himself to deal with the next situation. After only 1 blow hit Xiaodijin and the others, the dead creature took a step towards them. The extremely thick black qi was continuously absorbed by him, and then he repaired the hideous and terrifying wounds on his body. Jian Wushuang's heart moved. He cut directly with a sword. Xinghe Lake Heijianyi, the first release. The incomparable sword intent rose, swept across, illuminating the entire abyss for a moment, and then slashed towards the figure of the dead creature. The next moment, a scene that no one had expected appeared. The vast sword intent slashed in front of it, and it actually destroyed the body of the dead creature into two parts. Everything was too easy, as simple as Jian Wushuang didn't react, and his figure was scattered on the rocks. Just, that's it? Chen Qing's eyes were a little dull. Is he vulnerable, or brother sword, you are too strong? Jian Wushuang slowly shook his head. He could feel that it was not that he was too strong, but that the dead creature was too vulnerable. He seems to be too old, as if through endless years, making himself extremely weak. Chapter 4864. The extremely rich black energy was still in a whirlpool shape, frantically pouring into the shattered figure that collapsed to the ground. Jian Wushuang and Xiao Dijuan looked at each other, then lifted their sword and stepped forward slowly. The shattered figure that had been cut in two was squirming and seemed to be slowly healing and repairing. Brother Jian, we must never let him recover again, Xiaodigen said in a cold voice, then drew out the soft sword from his waist, and after a sword nailed half of his body to the ground, he prevented his recovery. Chen Qing also stepped forward and said in shock, what kind of thing is this guy? Couldn't it be an immortal who fell on the battlefield for a long time? Jian Wushuang shook his head and whispered softly, it will never be a fairy generation. Even if the source of the fairy is broken, the generation of the immortal that persists will have a generation of power fluctuations, but this one does not even have a trace of power fluctuations. That's really weird. Chen Qing scratched his head. Immediately, Jian Wushuang stared at the broken figure again. Because he was wearing a completely black and heavy visor, and he couldn't see his face, only two black rays of light projected from his eye sockets, with a certain shocking power. Inexplicably, Jian Wushuang subconsciously stretched out his palm, wanting to take off his visor. Brother Jian. Xiaodigen suddenly took his arm, be careful. He nodded, then slowly squatted down, reaching out his palm to touch the faceplate of the dead creature. The start was icy cold, and with the sound of a staggered bearing, the complicated and precise visor opened from the nose, and then revealed a face. To be precise, it is a well-preserved and determined face. No one thought that this body was about to turn into a dead soul with withered bones, and it still had such a face. With the unfolding of the complex and precise faceplate, the face of that determined and heroic fighter turned slightly, and finally looked at Jian Wushuang in front of him. At this glance, it seemed to cross the Wanggu Xinghe River, looking back in the long river of time. This glance shocked Jian Wushuang. For a long time, Jian Wushuang said softly, everything has passed, and now is no longer in the past. There was some movement on his resolute and heroic face. He opened his mouth and seemed to try very hard to say, why in you, there is a familiar feeling. As this sound fell, his figure that had been cut in two quickly dissipated, turning into a fluffy ash and disappeared. The face that wrapped that firm and valiant made Jian Wushuang's figure tremble slightly when it was about to dissipate. Because, when the body of the necromancer finally disappeared, he murmured a word silently. You are not from Dian. Then his figure turned into fly ash with the turbulent black energy. The surging black air dissipated, and the entire unknown abyssal world began to collapse rapidly, and the stone dome above his head began to give birth to fine cracks. Hurry up, this place is about to collapse. Xiaodigen reminded in a deep voice. The abyss where there was no exit had also cracked a gap not far away. It was an exit. Now that the dark source that destroyed the first heaven in the next 3 days has been eliminated, naturally there is no need to stay here. Xiaodigen and others are all ready to leave. Jian Wushuang also recovered from his thoughts. Finally, he looked at the place where the dead creatures disappeared, and suddenly saw a dark bead lying quietly under the visor. There was a movement in his heart, and he directly stretched out his hand and held it far away, and the black bead fell into his hand even with the visor. Brother sword, go, it won't last long here. Chen Qing's voice came from afar. Here. After Jian Wushuang stuffed the black beads and visor into the Bo-Yang bottle, he flew forward. Since the black energy has completely disappeared, it can naturally run its energy again. With the help of the descendants, the 4 descendants easily rose out of the abyss. When standing on the abyss again, Xiaotajin breathed a sigh of relief without a trace. The source of the black energy that has soaked an entire universe is removed, and all crises are lifted. In the next time, the Black Mountain of the First Day domain will definitely continue to mine. Looking at the Black Mountain community under the hazy misty sky, Jian Wushuang faintly felt that there were still many mysteries that had not been discovered or resolved. The originally tricky thing was solved easily. After leaving for the next 3 days and returning, Xiao Dijuan immediately decided and ordered more than 10 Yangxians to drive into Xiaogutian with 20 carts of treasures, all of which were given to Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang did not refuse, and directly let Chen Qing and Cui Jing take over, leaving the good things in the hall, and all the remaining treasures were taken to the Wangu Wushuang auction house. After returning to Xiaogutian from the next 3 days, Jian Wushuang jumped directly onto the top of the eaves and began to think about the meaning of the dark source words. And not long after, the figure of the 3 emperors who had been silent for the first time appeared on their own initiative, all looking at Jian Wushuang with a rather solemn expression. "Little friend, this is no joke." Yang Jun, a tall and thin old man, spoke first, his face full of dignity and alertness. Dao Gong and Su He also nodded solemnly in agreement. 3 seniors, what is it because of?" Jian Wushuang scratched his head and asked a little embarrassingly. Yang Jun didn't say much, and immediately stretched out his hand, and a dark object wrapped in rich and powerful force flew out of the Bo-Yang bottle. "It's this thing, where did you get it, little friend?" Yang Jun said seriously. Looking at the black bead that still exudes a weird aura, Jian Wushuang did not hide it, and immediately said what had happened in the next 3 days. In the end, he said, "This black bead and that visor were all found from under the abyss. Could this thing have some influence on you?" Yang Jun nodded. "Not only is it influential, but more importantly, we have discovered that this kind of thing can erode God's consciousness and power, even us." A short sentence contained too much information, which shocked Jian Wushuang. Under the abyss, the seemingly vulnerable source of darkness, the black beads produced, can even eat away the Emperor's divine consciousness and power. The Emperor, the highest known master of Jian Wushuang at present, although he did not take the step of Dayan Immortal, even for the 9th rank Dayan Immortal, he was easily crushed, and he was the creator of a heavenly court. Even Uncle Yu under the seat of Emperor Zhenwiang can kill the 9 ranks Dayan Immortal with 1 finger, let alone the unimaginable existence of the Emperor. Even though the 3 emperors of Yang Jun, Dao Gong, and Su He were destroyed, they were still the real emperors. At the moment, the black beads can cause real damage to the Emperor, which is really incredible. This thing has a great impact on us. Dao Gong, who has been silent, also added at this moment. Chapter 4865. Su He pushed him over, dissatisfied. "I always like to pretend to be a god, it's me. This thing, from the current point of view, actually has little impact on us, but it will be hard to say in the future. It is like an unstable factor, and no one knows what changes will happen to it in a certain day. We have just inspected this bead carefully. It's very weird, so we can't guess what it is. Therefore, if we can throw it away, we should throw it away as soon as possible to avoid severe damage in the future." Jian Wushuang frowned when he heard this. This black bead was extremely jealous of the Emperor, and it was able to kill the prisoners in the entire universe with his own power. It seemed to be an ominous thing. "Little friend," Yang Jun also took a step forward at this moment. "We must take precautions as soon as possible. I have an intuition that this kind of thing can never be as simple as it seems." With the reminder of the 3 emperors, Jian Wushuang also realized the seriousness of this. In this case, it can only be destroyed. As he said, he directly reached out to grasp the floating black beads. "No!" 3 emperors shouted in shock at the same time, as if something terrible would happen in the next moment. But the imaginary scene did not appear. Jian Wu held the black beads in both hands, without any discomfort, looking at him three with a look of confusion. The little friend, listen to me, you must not release the power, this thing is extremely restrained, and if you don't pay attention, it will burn your body. Yang Jun said nervously. But Jian Wushuang still looked puzzled. After the black bead with weird light fell into his hands, it was like a pot of boiling hot water was frozen in ice. Nothing unusual, it seems, nothing happened. How could it be okay? The three emperors looked at each other, some of them couldn't believe the scene. Could this bead be eaten by someone? Su He was a little uncertain. Dao Gong also said, anyway, you should dispose of this thing as soon as possible, but you must remember not to throw it away at will, so as not to let the soul suffer. After reminding and mentioning something, Sandy Jun returned to the Boyang bottle. Jian Wushuang nodded, and then carefully examined this strange black bead, trying to find something from it. But apart from the full strength of the surrounding air being completely swallowed by the black beads, there was no other abnormality. The black beads in his opponent were still foggy, but they still found shining points. According to the characteristics of this black bead, if in future battles, when facing a stronger opponent, can the black be released to devour the opponent's power, will it achieve unexpected results? Jian Wushuang pinched his chin and thought. At this moment, Xiaodajin set foot on Xiaoyushan again. After sensing his breath, he stuffed the black beads into his arms, then stood up to meet him. The little emperor, who put on a plain uniform, came to him and said, Brother Jian, what happened in the next 3 days? If you don't help me, I'm afraid there will be a big trouble. Gong Ziyan thanked him again, and the little gift he prepared earlier. I hope Brother Jian will not dislike it. It's okay, it's just a matter of effort. Jian Wushuang waved his hand, and said again, What is the little emperor looking for? Can't you come to Brother Jian to have a heart-to-heart talk? Xiaodajin smiled bitterly. He shrugged. Of course you can, go sit in the temple together? Little emperor hesitated for a moment, and finally said, In fact, Brother Jian, I am here, and I do have important matters to discuss. In less than 3 years, it is my emperor's birthday. Then I would like to invite Brother Jian to go to the heaven with me again. Feast. Of course. Jian Wushuang nodded. He breathed a sigh of relief. Brother Jian, young Master Yen, thanks again. After a moment of contemplation, Jian Wushuang asked, Going to heavenly court this time, can I enter Daoshu Pavilion that day? Of course there is no problem, Xiaodajin said. Brother Jian wants to go there to find bone armor? Jian Wushuang didn't hide it. Yes, instead of looking aimlessly, it's better to go there and try your luck. Okay, after those 3 years, I am looking forward to Brother Jian's arrival. Xiaodajin arched his hands again. Back in the hall, Di Qing had awakened from his deep sleep, stretched out to the front of Jian Wushuang, and said, Looking at your complexion, it seems that you are always on the go, and it's time to rest. Jian Wushuang shook his head. It's okay, I'm going to leave soon, so you will pay more attention to it. Di Qing raised his brows. Then Reashizi Xiaodajin really arranged your itinerary fully. Would you like me to teach him something for you? He couldn't laugh or cry. Teach him what to do, and you can rest here with peace of mind, and other things will not trouble you. Wei Liujia also stepped forward and said, Master Jian, I'll go with you, and we can take care of each other. No, there won't be any twists and turns in the itinerary this time. If there are too many people, things will go wrong. Jian Wushuang shook his head, and then he looked at the empty hall. Chen Qing, Chun Qiu and Cui Jing have been busy at the Wanggu Wushuang auction house, but there is one less one in this palace. Liu Jia, have you seen Zhao Ting? He asked. You mean Zhao Tianguan? I saw her a few days ago, and she disappeared in a blink of an eye. Wei Liujia was also a little uncertain, but if you want to come, Zhao Tianguan shouldn't go far. Jian Wushuang frowned slightly. If Wei Liujia said it would be okay, I was afraid that Zhao Ting would return to Datushan and inform the son of the situation here. Zhao Ting, the mysterious woman, was the former Datian official next to Gongzi Jiao, and her actions gave people a feeling of incomprehensibility. Even Jian Wushuang could not figure out any thoughts of her now. Therefore, she is still extremely worried. Just when he was about to take advantage of this time to explore the traces of Zhao Ting, she came back quietly. The scars all over her body have not been fully recovered. It seems that she had experienced a battle not long ago. After returning to the hall, she went straight back to her bedroom without talking to anyone. Jian Wushuang didn't have much to say, but he winked towards Di Qing. Di Qingxin understood it, and said in a voice that only the two of them could hear, "Don't worry, no one can turn the waves with me." With a flick of his fingers in 3 years, compared to the first visit to the heavenly court, this second time seemed much more low-key. Except for some close confidants, the entire 6-day realm was in a calm state, and it seemed that the news this time had not been publicized. Without riding the imperial court, without Yanxian opening the way, everything was quiet to the extreme. There are only 2 wearing plain uniforms, like the world's sun who travels through 10,000 domains, stepping on the void and flowing clouds, sweeping towards the boundless front. Chapter 4866. 6-day realm is definitely not a good place in the entire big division, and even some superworlds are much better than it. Not to mention, the North Tianxianzhu of the late Emperor's son Mo, and the second Emperor's son's rebellion, these are the mainland of Xianzhou Fuse. Moreover, the 6-day realm is located in a corner, and its location is also extremely bad. It is the farthest one from the heavens in the heavens of the 7 emperors. Jian Wushuang guessed that the reason Xiaodijin chose the 6-day realm was probably because of the uncountable resources in the next 3 days. And Jian Wushuang did not guess wrong. There was a big reason Xiaodijin chose the 6-day realm. It was indeed because of the countless resources. It was precisely these resources that allowed him to breathe amidst the secret struggle between the emperor and his son. As the most remote area, even at the speed of Yanxian, it would take nearly a year to reach it. This time, there were no longer any interceptions, and it passed smoothly. With the increasing number of super-universes, the derivation between the universes became more and more condensed, and the heaven where the Emperor Zhenwuyang was located had arrived. Looking at the heavenly realm that was still extremely magnificent, Jian Wushuang and Shao Dijuan stepped into it. Compared with the first heavenly banquet, this time the heaven was much more deserted, including the heavenly guards were extremely cold. And all this must be because of the death of the son of Mo. At the same time, Jian Wushuang was also thinking in his heart, not long after the 5th emperor's son Mo Kai died, Zhenwuyang definitely would not call the other 6 sons to the heaven to celebrate his birthday at this point in time. Definitely, following the reason of birthday, summoning the 6 sons to discuss some things. Passing through the 9-party heaven realm, stepping on the sky, Jian Wushuang and Shao Dijuan soon arrived in front of the heaven. The heavenly gate of the heavenly court was opened, and the boy was brought into the heavenly court by the lead boy. The other 5 emperors also arrived one after another and entered the heavenly court one after another. The curling celestial cloud rose up in the heaven, a bit more solemn and a bit less peaceful. Emperor Zhenwuyang still sits on the throne, and Uncle Yu stands behind him without any change. But the 99 seats on both sides of the heavenly court were empty at this moment, and the elders who had accompanied Zhenwuyang to this day did not appear. The huge heaven is silent. The little emperor came to the heaven first, and after bowing to Zhenwuyang, he stepped forward and sat on the side of the emperor's throne. Then, Gong Zi Jiao, Gong Zi Yu, Gong Zi Hua, and the emperor also entered the heavenly court one after another, and after all bowed honestly, they took their respective Yanxian cronies to sit in their own seats. Seeing this scene, none of the 6 emperors dared to say a word. All of them bowed their heads, sitting with their eyes and noses and hearts. Where is the birthday celebration? It is almost the same to mourn the 5 emperors' son Mo. For a long time, Zhenwuyang, who was sitting on the throne, said, "Yener, how long has it been since the last meeting?" Xiaodijin immediately replied, "Back to the emperor, less than 30 years. It's less than 30 years, just a moment." Zhenwuyang looked tired. "In less than 30 years, so many things have happened. I have never had a birthday. Today, I used this pretext to let you over, but it was just to get together for a while. In less than 30 years, such drastic changes have taken place, so I am in a daze to realize that between father and son, we have almost never been alone." Mo Air's departure made me want to make up for it, but I regret it. Zhen Weiyang slowly got up, his eyes slowly swept across the emperors. Moer is dead. I don't want to see any of you again. He will repeat his mistakes. Remember, you are brothers, not blood feuds. All the emperors' complexions changed slightly at this moment, but they quickly returned to normal. But the changes on their faces did not escape Jian Wushuang's observation. Among these emperors, the most fluctuating complexion was not the Sun Jiao, but the Sun Yu of the three emperors. He appeared very flustered and soon returned to calm again. For a moment, the son of the four emperors, Sun Qian, flashed a gloating look in his eyes. The son of the sixth emperor, Sun Hua, and the son of the seventh emperor, Sun Lin were a little sad. As for the mastermind assassin, Gong Zijiao, there was no expression at all, and even the sadness in his eyes from time to time, which made Jian Wushuang have some opinions on him. After the drastic changes that have taken place before, combined with the current emotional changes of Gong Zijiao, this is undoubtedly an extremely terrifying opponent. In the future, he will inevitably have a fierce battle with Xiao Dijuan. And if that day comes, I'm afraid it's time for this big division to reshuffle the cards. He sat back on the emperor's seat and patted the warm jade handrail lightly. This emperor position can be done by anyone, but the emperor's luck is not something everyone can have. There is only one emperor in this big division. Withdrawing his gaze, Zhen Weiyang seemed to be a lot older at this moment. If you say it all, you all need to do it yourself. All the emperors gave their hands. I follow the emperor's teachings. However, Emperor Zhen Weiyang immediately said, I call you here this time, and there is one more thing to tell you. I need to leave the Daisai domain for a while, so you can do it for yourself. All the emperors were startled, obviously a little disbelief. You know, since the establishment of the Great Siyu and the moment when the heavenly court is settled, Emperor Zhen Weiyang has never left the Big Siyu since then, and it has not been known how many years. Right now, he left the Siyu at this point in time, leaving all the emperors unpredictable. Father, where are you going? Little Emperor asked. An unknown place. Zhen Weiyang's deep gaze looked into the distance, not knowing what he was thinking. This training in the name of birthdays lasted for a very short period of time, and even ended without even half a day. This is something Jian Wushuang didn't expect. Zhen Weiyang and Uncle Yu left first. For a time, in the entire heavenly court, only 6 emperors and their cronies looked at each other. Jian Wushuang sat motionless in the same place, but at least 2 eyes were locked on him. One gaze is Gong Zijiao, and the other is Gong Ziyu. He remained calm and returned with a calm look. Whether in the great heaven or in the former heavenly court of the 6 crow emperors, Jian Wushuang had his face transformed, and even his body shape had been adjusted, almost completely different from his original self. Hugh said it was them, and even Chuan Xiu, who had been around for the longest time, couldn't tell. Regarding this point, Jian Wushuang is extremely certain. Sure enough, the young man corrected the sharp gaze that was as sharp as a knife, and soon disappeared, and then revealed a touch of doubt that was uncertain. Chapter 4867. But he still cast his gaze at Jian Wushuang from time to time, as if trying to find any clues. He always felt that Jian Wushuang had seen him somewhere else, and it had something to do with certain things. And there is Gong Ziyu who has this feeling. After being beaten up in the heavenly court that he had found accidentally, and almost killed him, young Master Yu returned to his own heaven and lay down until today, only to barely recover. And after looking at Jian Wushuang, he also had a faint illusion of déjà vu. But Jian Wushuang's concealment was so perfect that he didn't even use the iconic immortal style. Even if the 2 of them were sitting in his arms, they absolutely could not detect any clues. However, he was still a little worried that he would show clues if he stayed, so he looked at Xiaodigen. Xiaodigen understood, got up and prepared to leave. At this moment, Gong Zijiao suddenly got up and smiled with a signature gentle smile. Big brother, just come in such a hurry and leave in a hurry, don't you want to reminisce about the old with a few younger brothers? Xiaodigen's figure was slightly startled, and then stopped in place and said in a cold voice, don't call me big brother. Hearing this, the son shrugged indifferently, It seems that His Royal Highness, little Emperor, really doesn't care about the feelings of the same line. Shameless, he said coldly, and then prepared to leave with Jian Wushuang. Hey, I said, if you want to go, you can leave the gift for the Emperor. The son said in a loud voice, obviously not planning to let him leave. Little Emperor stopped his figure, turned around and sneered, "What are you, dare to ask me for a gift, even if I am preparing, will you dare to take over?" After that, he turned around and left. The son's expression turned gloomy, almost dripping from his eyes. Trash things, sooner or later you will kneel down and confess. Leaving the heavenly court, Xiao Dijuan took Jian Wushuang straight to the Tiandao Book Pavilion, and continued to search for the existence of the bone armor with the Tianzi pattern. This search is more than dozens of days. To Ling Jian Wushuang's disappointment, this time the Tianzi patterned bone armor did not appear again. He and Xiao Dijuan searched almost every corner of the Tiandao Book Pavilion, but there was no trace. It seems that this kind of thing can only be obtained by chance in the future. He sighed and looked at the sky-shaped bone armor in his hand. Little Emperor said, even if you can't find other dominoes for now, you might as well try to break the ciphertext of the dominoes on hand now. Jian Wushuang's brow jumped, and the method Xiao Dijuan said was indeed a good idea. This big division is so big that even if you can't find the bone armor of the sky, it must be easier to find one that can understand this kind of ciphertext. Immediately, he asked, "Do you know anyone who is proficient in this way?" After thinking about it for a while, Xiao Dijuan said, "I don't know, but there are not a few immortal masters in DCU who are proficient in strange ways. In my cognition, there should be a master craftsman who is proficient in this way, maybe it can be solved. The ciphertext on this domino. Then what is the name of this divine craftsman and where does he live?" Jian Wushuang was a little anxious. After all, the ciphertext on the bones and armors of the day is too important to him. Regarding Xian Yi, Lao Zun, the news is likely to be on this. The little emperor did not sell too much. There are more than 1,000 famous craftsmen in the big division, but there are only a few who can be called master craftsmen. Among these more than 10 master craftsmen, one of them likes to delve into the art of gold and ancient prophecies and act style. They are all weird master craftsmen. I had some intersections with him in the early years of China, and they should give me a little bit of face. This master craftsman is named Su Tua. He lives in Swordsman Mountain and has the ability to reach the sky and the earth. Su Tua. Jian Wushuang murmured and repeated again, feeling that the name was a bit familiar. Immediately, he suddenly thought that he had heard the name of the master craftsman Su Tua as early as the master's correction. At that time, the first master of the blessed land under the seat of the sun Jiao, he once presented a handle of avoiding the clear wish cast by the craftsman Su Tua, which is very ingenious. Jian Wushuang looked at Xiaodigen and said, "It seems that after this time, I will go to Swordsman Mountain to find Su Tua." He nodded, "I will go with you then." It was a pity that he couldn't find the bone armor with the heavenly character pattern in the Tiandao Book Pavilion anymore, but I got another news, which also pointed out a new way for Jian Wushuang. Stepping out of the Tiandao Book Pavilion, Xiaodigen stood under a green tree and drew a cloud of celestial clouds in his hand, turning into a crane. "This is my emperor's first birthday. No matter what, I have to send a gift." He seemed to be talking to Jian Wushuang, or to a crane, and then placed a delicate small box on the back of the crane. "Go, I must hurry to send the gift before my emperor leaves to see you." With the departure of the crane, Xiaodigen put on a gesture of inviting, "Brother Jian, let me walk around here." Jian Wushuang nodded and traveled in the heaven together. Since my emperor has demarcated the boundary of the Great Division and established the heavenly court, he has not left the Great Division again, but he has left at this time now, and brought us together to warn him. Can Brother Jian see my emperor's intentions? Little Emperor looked at him and asked. Jian Wushuang pondered for a moment, and then said, "The purpose and the possibility of doing this, I think there are two. The first possibility is that he uses the excuse of leaving to test whether you brothers will really let go. Fight each other with hands and feet. As for the second possibility, he really left to see you for a period of time because of important things, not a short period of time, and will take away all the elders, so he has no time to worry about what will happen to deceive you in the future. Come to warn you about the matter. After listening to Xiaodigen, he took a deep breath and his eyes suddenly became extremely solemn. Brother Jian, once it is the second possibility, then the fight between us will probably begin at this moment. Jian Wushuang raised his brow slightly. If it is the first possibility, wouldn't it be in the arms of your emperor? I'm afraid this time, it will only be the second possibility, Xiaodigen said in a condensed voice. The battle between us seems to be much faster than imagined. He said, looking at Jian Wushuang, my strength was originally relatively weak among the other 6 emperors. Whether or not to fight in the future, improving strength will be an urgent matter. I can't wait any longer. Otherwise, the fate of young Master Mo will definitely be my fate. Little Dijuan took a deep breath and solemnly said, Brother Jian, if there is a way, do you want to be in the position of Dian Immortal? Please remember the domain name of the book's first publication. Mobile version reading URL. Chapter 4868. A short sentence, like the 9 heavens thunder, exploded in Jian Wushuang's mind. The position of Dian Immortal, once entered this realm, is the real beginning. Feel the luck of the emperor, compete for the throne, everything is in the realm of Dian Fairy. Similarly, if you want to be promoted to Dian Immortal, the difficulty of cultivating is far beyond imagination. This is no longer something that can be made in years, but it needs illusory luck and opportunity to add to it. It is possible to break through to that state. Countless immortals have spent their endless lives, but they can only be trapped in despair in the realm of immortals. The most typical example is Qin Qing. Even though he has understood the immortal style, he still hasn't touched that barrier, so that breaking through Dian Immortal is an unimaginable luxury. Seeing him being silent, Xiao Dijuan repeated it again. Brother Jian, do you want to enter the realm of Dian Immortal? The reason why Jian Wushuang didn't answer was because if he agreed, there would be too much involvement. In layman's terms, it is to eat people's mouth softly and take people's hands softly. This is an unbreakable truth. Dian Immortal realm cannot be promoted so easily. Jian Wushuang frowned slightly. As long as you nod your head, Brother Jian, I'm 99% sure that you will be able to ascend the place of Dian Immortal. Little Dijuan said seriously. Seeing the doubt in his eyes, Xiao Daijian's eyes flashed with sadness, and then said, the reason why I am so sure is because a veteran under the emperor's seat turned his lifelong perception into inheritance. In the heaven realm, waiting for you Yenxian to accept its inheritance. Because my immortal body is defective and unable to practice, I can only spend my life in the realm of evolving immortals, and naturally I cannot obtain that inheritance. But now, I can't wait any longer. There must be a Dian Immortal in the 6-day realm to be able to keep it in the next fight. He said, reaching out and tightly holding Jian Wushuang's arm. I try my best. Jian Wushuang finally responded. Xiaodigen smiled as if relieved. Okay, then I will do my best to wish Brother Jian to be promoted to the position of Dian Immortal. Leaving from the heavenly court, the two of them went straight back to the 6-day realm. The former veteran under the seat of Zhen Wuyang was the peak of the 9th rank, the realm of Dian Immortal, and spent his life with true Wuyang in all the heavens. Even the same state Dian Immortal was worried about falling away when facing him. I learned from the little emperor that such a Dian Immortal had died voluntarily. He voluntarily dispersed to the fairy source, shattered the fairy body, leaving only the inheritance left in the 6-day realm. But just before the death, he said quietly, and after it was really boring, he fell. Listening to his constant introduction, a gradually plump and fleshy image of Dian Immortal appeared in Jian Wushuang's mind. He even wanted to meet this very character Dian Immortal. The 9th rank Dian Immortal whose name is unknown, his inheritance was left in the 3rd heaven in the next 3 days, and was never known to outsiders, only Xiaodigen knew about it. After another year of returning home, Jian Wushuang finally returned to the 6-day realm. Under Xiaodigen's guidance, the two of them went straight to the 3rd heaven domain of the next 3 days without stopping. As the enchantment ripples around his body, the sight of the third heaven came into his eyes. The sea, the Black Sea, the endless Black Sea. As the night is condensed on the earth, the completely black color seems to be able to absorb any light, making the entire third heaven a little chaotic. Along with the endless Black Sea, there are towering black mountains leaning in this Black Sea. Strange, dead, and deserted are the main colors here. Here is the heritage of the veteran. Xiaotigen pointed to the front and said, "Since the third heaven is almost entirely covered by the Black Sea, it has become difficult to mine the Black Mountain spar. So after this heaven was taken over by me, no one else has set foot. Stay the same until today." Jian Wushuang nodded. "Where will his inheritance be?" "It looks like it's in the Mingyuan continent. I have forgotten it after too long. Let's check it out first," Xiaotigen said with a slightly embarrassed expression. After he finished speaking, he waved his hand and threw out a clear light, which turned into a wooden boat and stood still in the Black Sea. "This miasma easily affects our minds. Let's go by boat and be safer." After the two stepped into the wooden boat spontaneously broke through the sea and drove forward. Before that veteran decided to pass on all his insights to me before he decided to die, I was born with flaws, unable to practice cultivation, and unable to possess immortal roots, so naturally I couldn't get his inheritance. Sitting in the wooden boat, Xiao Dijuan calmly told Jian Wushuang, even with a slight smile, "You are the only one who knows that I am flawed, apart from my big companion and those so-called brothers." Jian Wushuang looked at him. "Why do you want to tell me this? You can keep outsiders from knowing." "Of course I am trying my best to hide this secret. After all, the fact that the great emperor of Zhenwuyang is a trash that cannot be practiced will spread, and the impact will be very bad. But I want to confide these words that are about to rot in my heart to others," Xiaotigen said with a smile. "Brother Jian, you are also the only friend I want to confide in." "Thank you, I will always keep this secret." Jian Wushuang nodded and said solemnly. He said again, "This secret is my biggest weakness. Anyone who knows it can easily hit me hard. I can't practice. Even if I am immortal, even if I master the immortal style, I can't conceal the fact that there is no immortal root and no immortal source. Everything I have now is only given to me by my emperor with a secret method, so the immortality is my limit. Even in this lifetime, there is absolutely no possibility of breakthrough. I thought I would fall in this time of assassination, but your arrival, Brother Jian, gave me hope." Xiaotigen solemnly said, "So, in any case, I will also welcome you to the position of Dian Immortal within this period of time." Jian Wushuang didn't speak, he was thinking about a problem just now. From Xiaotigen's performance and mouth, it was known that his fairy body did have a lot of defects, and he was born unable to condense the roots of the fairy, the source of the fairy. This is a fatal place. In layman's terms, it is simply a waste body that is inherently unable to practice. But at the same time, what makes Jian Wushuang somewhat uncomprehending is that such a waste body has achieved the position of evolving the immortal and mastered the immortal style, which is simply incredible. Based on this, he was thinking about whether he could open up another road, a road of practice that is very different from ordinary practice. Please remember the domain name of the book's first publication. Mobile version reading URL. Chapter 4869. It's just that the creation of another cultivation system, for Jian Wushuang now, is tantamount to a fantasy. It is something that can't be imagined at all, and even the starting source can't be realized. However, there was a path of reverse cultivation ahead that allowed Jian Wushuang to think about this boldly. What is Dianhuan's cultivation system complete, and can he realize a different path from before? The wooden boat traveled extremely fast, breaking through the water in this Black Sea. The black water in the Black Sea is more viscous, just like some kind of mucus, and can feel a lot of resistance. The so-called Mingyuan continent is the only continent in the third celestial domain, and it is also very likely to be the inheritance of the elder who volunteered to fall. With the continuous advance, the black mountains in the Black Sea gradually decreased, and the sea area began to become as smooth as a mirror. The waters of Rumo are connected to the sky of chaos, with a flat boat in the middle breaking through the water. When land appeared in the eyes, it indicated that the only piece of Mingyuan continent would arrive. One step from the wooden boat to the land, the continent made of jagged rocks came into view. This endless continent seems to have also been infiltrated by black water, becoming black and rough, and there are hideous and convex rocks everywhere. Even the tall weeds are black. The inheritance should be here. Although he disperses to Xianyuan, he must still have obsessions here. By then I will personally guide it, and it will definitely succeed. Xiaodagen said in a concrete, while taking the lead in moving forward. The entire Mingyuan continent was extremely vast, but compared with the inheritance perception of a 9th-rank Great Yen Immortal, it was fundamentally inferior. So the first time he set foot on the mainland, Jian Wushuang felt a majestic and exuberant aura of strength. He didn't even need to look for Xiaodagen, he locked a place. It was a place of heaven and danger, and there were 8 black mountains that looked like swords and swords. In the very center of the mountain, there is a halo of quintessence to the extreme. It seems to be there, let's go. Xiaodagen said, soaring forward. Under the mountain and river, Jian Wushuang came to the Yanli halo in an instant. The light beams of various colors are intertwined in it, and the countless rainbow shadows are in the beginning of the cycle, and the brilliance that is only revealed seems to be engulfing the atmosphere of ruining the world. Xiaodagen took a deep breath and said, "It seems that this is the inheritance and perception of the elder, Brother Jian. Can you feel the difference? It's a feeling beyond the realm of evolving immortals." Jian Wushuang affirmed. With Di Qing, the rank 9 Dian Immortal by his side, Jian Wushuang had some familiarity and understanding of the realm of Dian Immortal. At the moment, this group of Yanli Halo, he can be sure that it is not weaker than Di Qing. In this case, I am waiting for the good news from Brother Jian. Xiaodagen smiled. However, Jian Wushuang didn't have much excitement, because he felt that this seemed a bit too hasty. He is just the pinnacle of immortal Yen, but he wants to comprehend the inheritance of sentiment that controls the ninth rank Great Yen Immortal, which spans nearly a big realm, and I am afraid that some accidents will happen. But now the arrow is on the line and I have to send it. Seeing that group of Yanli light group exuding brilliance, Jian Wushuang slowly stretched out his palm to fit it, and at this moment, a strange aura in that group of Yanli light made him suddenly vigilant. That kind of strange breath showed a black color. Although it was only a flash, it still made Jian Wushuang want to take back his palm subconsciously. The sudden change occurred, almost at the same time when he retracted his palm. The Yanli light ball deformed. Suddenly more than 10 black and gorgeous lights were swept out, and it was attached to his arm, and then dragged it into the light ball. The whole process didn't even have a breath time, and Jian Wushuang disappeared without a trace. The little emperor on the side also reacted, reaching out to grab him, but was dragged in by the huge force. The gang wind raged and raged, and the Black Sea in the entire third heaven was restlessly restless, and set off a huge wave that was 10,000 feet high. Jian Wushuang only felt a burst of uncontrollable great power, dragging him into a certain area, and then the scene in front of him also changed drastically. The rocks at the foot are no longer, replaced by a vast square like a chessboard. And right in front of this vast square is a magnificent and depressing giant hall. Jian Wu's double-faced color is extremely solemn, and all the breath radiating here is dark and cold, full of a sense of killing. This is not like the place where the inheritance is located, but rather like the Shura field where a party is fighting. Xiaodagen was also involved here, full of doubts. "Brother Jian, where is this place?" He walked quickly to Jian Wushuang and asked. Jian Wushuang whispered, "We are all involved in the Yanli light group, and it is very likely that we are in a certain area now." Little Emperor said uncertainly, "Could it be in the cave sky left by the veteran? If this is really the veteran's cave sky realm, I am afraid he is definitely not a good person." Jian Wushuang's eyes gradually became solemn. "This is not a place of inheritance, but a trap." "Trap?" He was startled. "No, when the elder was still alive, he treated me extremely well, and even asked the emperor to be my big companion. He would never harm me. You don't know if it hurts or not, how the immediate priority is to leave here unharmed." Jian Wushuang said, already operating secretly. Right here, the magnificent and depressing hall suddenly opened the door, and a hurricane rose from it. The pitch-black hurricane rolled over in an instant, bringing a sensational trend. Jian Wushuang also used ancestral skills in an instant. The heavenly gate of the power world rises magnificently, like hundreds of rounds of big sun descending from the heavenly gate. A huge finger across the sky also directly blocked the dark hurricane. But just blocked it for a moment, and it fell apart. Go! Jian Wushuang shouted, but it was too late, and the unstoppable hurricane swept directly. However, the imaginary pain did not strike, and the hurricane quietly stopped in front of Jian Wushuang, no further progress. Jian Wushuang quickly retreated more than 10 feet before staring. The hurricane that stopped was several meters high, and after the layers of ashes peeled off, a black-robed figure gradually condensed. It was an old man in a black robe with extremely black beard and hair. His face was pale and withered, and his eyes had no whites in them, just like two black pills, very strange. Who are you who dare to come here and disturb my slumber? It was as if the voices converging from all directions were low to the extreme and seemed to be bloodthirsty. Please remember the domain name of the book's first publication. Mobile version reading URL. Chapter 4870. Jian Wushuang slowly backed away, and the invisible sword had quietly gathered. At the moment, the height of this man is more than several meters tall, like an old man walking out of the black fog. There is no power surging in his body, but the general trend that is emitted does not dare to be underestimated. He also had some understanding. Although this old man did not show up, he might not lose sight of the confrontation with Di Qing, and he might even reach a tie. At this time, Xiao Dijuan stepped forward and stood in front of Jian Wushuang, and said two words in a nervous voice, Yuan Jun. Huh. The black-robed old man stared at Xiaodigen, a color of doubt flashing in his eyes. I am young Master Yen. Xiaodigen added. The black-robed old man's eyes suddenly condensed. You are Yenzi? Xiaodigen breathed a sigh of relief, then smiled bitterly. It's me. I thought Yuan Jun forgot about the kid. Good boy, it has become like this since the beginning. The black-robed old man suddenly disappeared before condensing in front of him. His eyes could not stop showing joy. Seeing this scene, Jian Wushuang also secretly breathed a sigh of relief and put away the invisible sword. Avoiding a battle that will pay a great price, this kind of result is naturally good. Xiaodigen scratched his head. The years are too long. If I didn't remember what Yuan Jun you looked like when I was young, I am afraid I will be in trouble today. The old man called Yuan Jun looked up and smiled, and then said, You don't need to worry about me, you guys. Even if you don't remember what I look like, I will always remember your appearance. The kid understands. Xiaodigen also smiled. Well, since you come to see my old bone, then go sit in my hall first. Yuan Jun said with a wave of his sleeves. Xiaodigen nodded, and immediately looked at Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang shook his head without a trace. A vigilance flashed in his eyes. He smelled a bit of danger from the open hall, and if he rushed in, he might encounter an uncontrollable crisis. This is... Yuan Jun cast his gaze towards Jian Wushuang. Xiaodigen hurriedly added, This is my best friend, Brother Jian. Yuan Jun nodded. Since I am a close friend of Boy Yen, I will not expel air for the time being. Let's come in together. After the words, he was in the shape of a fog, drifting towards the hall. Seeing him leave first, Jian Wushuang looked at Xiaodigen, frowning slightly. Do you know how much do you know about him and how many things he is hiding from you? Xiaodigen was a little dumb, and said after a moment, Yuan Jun was one of the only elders who followed me closely when I was young. Although he soon explained himself to Xian Yuan, I always knew his care for me. If not, he will not leave the inheritance to me either. As he said, he stretched out his palm and placed it on Jian Wushuang's shoulder. Brother Jian, believe me once, Yuan Jun will never be malicious to us. Jian Wushuang opened his mouth, but finally did not speak. The two figures immediately entered into the giant hall of the formidable. What he didn't say was actually quite important. If it was Xiaodigen's words, Then Yuan Jun had died of self-understanding of the immortal source, leaving only a trace of obsession. Then the situation now is completely different from what he said. Yuan Jun has no body at all. In other words, his fairy source is very abundant so far, and the figure that appears is not his last obsession, but a truly unbroken fairy body. This is why Jian Wushuang would hesitate. After all, facing a concealed and extremely powerful existence, being vigilant is the correct performance. As soon as he stepped into the giant hall, the dark aura disappeared a lot. The first thing that catches your eyes is the elegant pavilions, not the solemn and cold halls. Boy Yen, come here and go fishing with the old man. On a vacant pitch-black fairy pavilion, Jun Yuan was sitting on the top of the eaves, holding a fishing rod as a gesture. Come here. Xiaodijin answered, and stepped onto the fairy pavilion with Jian Wushuang. After handing him a fishing rod, Yuan Jun looked at Jian Wushuang and said, Boy, do you like fishing? Jian Wushuang nodded and said, It's okay, I was addicted for a while when I was killing time. That's good, it's a good seedling that can calm your mind. After throwing a fishing rod to him, Yuan Jun caught the fish enthusiastically. Xiao Dijuan was sitting in the center and wanted to ask some questions, but he didn't know how to speak, hesitated. It was Yuan Jun who spoke first. Boy Yen, can Emperor Zhen Wuyang change now? Xiaodijin replied, My father is still the same. After he claimed to have established the Desiu, he settled down and lived in heavenly court. That's good, his mission is completed, it's time to take a break. Yuan Jun nodded when he heard the words, Go ahead, why do you think of seeing me? That. Xiaodijin scratched his head awkwardly, I originally wanted to come here to accept the inheritance. When Yuan Jun heard this, he hurriedly looked at him carefully, Boy Yen, is your immortal body better? No, the defect is still there and I still can't practice. After my father used the secret method to promote me to Yenxian, I can't make any further progress. Little Emperor said. Damn, you belong to the Emperor's bloodline, how could this happen? Yuan Jun frowned, could it be that there is no chance to change? Yuan Jun, I have accepted it. My father has nothing to do. It looks good now. Xiaodijin said with a light smile, and the reason why I came is not for myself, but for Brother Jian accept the inheritance of Yuan Jun. Upon hearing this, Yuan Jun looked at Jian Wushuang again. For him. Yes, I'm just an immortal who can't practice. Without the protection of Brother Jian, I would have fallen through assassinations. As he said, he listened to Yuan Jun about the intricate relationship between the emperors. In the end, he said quietly, In our generation, we'll only stop fighting by killing. Yuan Jun was silent, stretched out his hand and patted Xiaodijin's shoulder lightly. I have suffered you. But my heritage is gone. Xiaodijin didn't understand his meaning, his eyes were puzzled. If you came to accept my inheritance after I destroyed Xianyuan in the first place, then you can see it naturally, but everything has changed right now, Yuan Jun sighed. Despite everything that happened, even me unexplainable, but it actually happened. Jian Wushuang also pricked his ears at this moment. He knew that Lord Yuan was about to reveal the real secrets. The so-called Xian and even Dian are nothing more than the word Xianyuan in the end. Xianyuan is the true root, and it is complementary to the roots of the immortal. It is the most important thing for the development of immortals. The fragmentation of the source of immortality means complete fall. Please remember the domain name of the book's first publication. Mobile version reading URL. Chapter 4871. Yuan Jun paused when he said that, and slowly stretched out his left palm, and a ray of pure strength was condensed. After Emperor Zhen Wuyang established the Desai territory, the conquests and killings stopped, which made me feel bored. I destroyed the source of immortality and only wanted long sleep. Whether it is the external force destroying the Xianyuan or self-destroying the Xianyuan, it is an irreversible wound. I successfully broke the Xianyuan, and naturally I will fall irreversibly. My self-destruction was very thorough. Apart from leaving a legacy for you, I didn't even leave a point for obsession, So my spiritual consciousness also withered and fell into emptiness. But my fall seems to be a little different. Although my divine consciousness is withered, it seems to be tirelessly awakened by some power. It's just that I don't know how many Chinese years have passed. The original shattered and shattered divine consciousness recovered. I woke up, and at the same time, I was surprised to find that even Xian Yuan had condensed again. After that, I fully recovered, but because I was tired of the great world, I simply stayed here until I see you again today. The voice stopped abruptly at this point. The amount of information contained in such a remark is not much, but the mystery is at the extreme. Even Jian Wushuang is a little confused. Self-destroying the source of immortality, immortal body, this is an irreversible trauma. Xiao said that it is an ordinary Dian immortal. Even with the truth of the 9 true lives, I dare not play like this. Except for Jian Wushuang, who had no source of immortality and possessed an immortal body, he dared to give it a try. Moreover, it is obvious that the 2 special cases do not exist for Yuan Jun, and the resurrection of the resurrection naturally seems a little confusing. A sense of loss flashed in the depths of Xiaodaijian's eyes, but he smiled. It seems that you are the Yuan Jun who is inexhaustible fortune. To live this time again, you should stop doing stupid things and pursue a higher realm. Yuan Jun smiled and nodded. Listen to you, since my luck is inexhaustible, the old man will go after the great road. After chatting for a long time, the little emperor was about to leave. Boy Yen, I can't leave this place yet, but if you have a big crisis, I will definitely come to help. Yuan Jun said solemnly. Little emperor nodded. Okay, if there is such a day then, the kid will definitely come to invite Yuan Jun. The security of a 9th-ranked Dian immortal is extremely heavy. Jian Wushuang also understood at this moment that Emperor Zhen Weong had arranged several Dian immortals beside each emperor. There is a black-robed Dian immortal under the fallen young master Mo seat, and at the same time there is a true meaning. There is also a Nineth-ranked Dian immortal Changfu next to Gongzijio. And there is a Yuan Jun beside Xiaodaijian. Then, the other emperors must also be accompanied by Dian immortals, and once a war starts with each other, it would be extremely tragic. After speaking, the 2 of them were ready to leave. But at this moment, Yuan Jun suddenly called Jian Wushuang. That kid, did you leave in such a hurry? Jian Wushuang stopped, with some doubts in his eyes. Although my inheritance has disappeared, this does not hinder my hand-to-hand inheritance. Yuan Jun said proudly after throwing away the fishing rod in his hand, I also have a good eye for you, so just stay and let me teach it. Xiaodaijian heard the words, and a touch of surprise appeared in his eyes. Brother Jian, thank Yuan Jun soon. Unexpectedly, Jian Wushuang shook his head. Forget it, senior. Although inheritance can be greatly changed in a very short time, it will also have some drawbacks. I still feel it myself. You look down on the old man? Yuan Jun's voice condensed, and he danced without wind in a black robe. Since you are a good friend of Boy Yen, then I will do my best to cultivate you. You must agree or disagree, and if you disagree, you must agree. That's it. After he finished speaking, he stretched out his hand and grabbed Jian Wushuang without any defense directly to a dojo. Xiaodaijian was excited with his boxing palm, as if he was more happy than he got the inheritance. On the vast dojo, like a chessboard, Jian Wushuang's figure stood still, and he had obviously accepted the reality. On the opposite side of him, Yuan Jun stood with his hand holding his hand, full of a sense of stubbornness. Boy, let me ask you, how long have you been in the realm of immortality? Jian Wushuang raised his brows. From Divine Power Universe to Dayanhuan, he reached the top of the ancestor level and became the eternal god, and now he has become an immortal. It took less than tens of thousands of years. Thousands of years, when replaced by the Taoist Supremes in the Divine Power Universe, they are just a few sessions of retreat and enlightenment, let alone the evangelists who have transcended the heavens and are measured in Huanyan. Time and years are no longer meaningful to them, but it does take time to prove it if you want to measure the qualifications of a top cultivation or an immortal. In order to avoid unnecessary troubles, Jian Wushuang directly swallowed thousands of years into his stomach and casually ridiculed a Chinese year that was about the same age as Xiao Dijuan. Yuan Jun heard the words and nodded. It's not bad. At such an age, he is indeed a plastic talent. If you want to be in the same era as me, you will definitely become a great Yenxian now. I can give you very few things, and I can't even teach you anything, he said simply, but because I promised Yanzi, I decided to grit my teeth and teach you. But you have to promise the old man one thing before this. I will not be by his side in the future. You must protect him in any case. Jian Wushuang heard this, and after a moment of silence, he slowly shook his head. I'm sorry that the younger generation can't agree. Xiao Dijuan, who was smiling and watching this scene outside the dojo, was stunned, and even the eyes of Yuan Jun became cold for a moment. Why? Because juniors cannot stay in the big division for a long time. I have a lot of important things to solve, so I can't agree to it. What an arrogant kid. Do you know who you are bargaining with? Yuan Jun danced wildly behind him, and the general trend of the Nineth rank Dian Immortal was instantly overwhelmed. Yuan Jun, keep your hands. The little emperor who was outside the dojo hurriedly rushed to block Yuanjun's general trend. Don't stop me, let me frustrate this junior's spirit first. He said angrily. Yuan Jun, there is nothing wrong with what he said. We actually said something before. Xiaodijin smiled reluctantly. It is unfair to him to let him protect me from now on. Yuan Jun calmed down and frowned. But if he leaves at any time and I am not by your side, you will be in a passive and dangerous situation at any time. Xiao Dijuan smiled, then raised his eyebrows and looked at Jian Wushuang. He won't leave at any time. You must know that we have talked first, and protect me for 70 years. It seems that it's not halfway through now. Please remember the domain name of the book's first publication. Mobile version reading URL. Chapter 4872. Yuan Jun was dissatisfied. It's only 70 years? My breathing effort is longer than this. 70 years for me now is enough to do a lot of things, Xiaodijin said. This will be a node, and many things will happen in this period of time. This 70 years will be the time to lay the foundation, and the value is immeasurable. That's not okay, Yuan Jun said in a grumpy voice. For the sake of only 70 years, I have to work hard to cultivate a great Yenxian. It is really not worthwhile. At this time, Jian Wushuangdo said, predecessors, training and inheritance are actually unnecessary. No, you have to accept the old man's inheritance. In the end, Yuan Jundao said, on the basis of the original 70 years, I want you to protect Xiaodijin 5 times in the future no matter where you are. After pondering for a moment, Jian Wushuang nodded, yes. After some bargaining, it led to the final result. Xiaodijin smiled and left with the excuse of something in the 6th heaven realm, but when he turned around, there was loneliness in his eyes. There were only 2 figures left in the huge dojo. From the beginning of the development to the development of the immortality, it is actually a harsh screening. As far as my perception is concerned, that is the real threshold. It is the real test of starting from nothing and getting the Tao from the world. And the higher realm of Dian Immortal, in my perception and cognition, is actually like a clear spring, letting it go. What I want to say is that those who are trapped in the realm of evolving immortals and unable to break through to the Emperor are all stupid idiots, and stupid idiots with heads on their ass. Yuan Jun scolded him a lot, and added another sentence at the end. Of course Xiao Dijuan is an exception. He is unable to practice because of the lack of luck in the first place. In short, it's just one sentence. Anyone who has enlightenment will never be trapped in the realm of the fairy and unable to break through. Now, you come to tell me, how do you want to break through to Dian Immortal and rely on my inheritance? Jian Wushuang raised his head and said calmly, let's go with the flow. It's good to go with the flow, Yuan Jun sneered. Do you know how I broke through Dian Immortal? He said, end the struggle with war, endless killing. Yuan Jun was startled slightly and then admired, the eyesight is good. It took me a very short time to go from Yenxian to Dianxian. There was almost no Chinese year interval in between, but during this time, the number of Yenxian who fell in my hands was no less than 100,000, even the Dianxian was close. Hundreds. One of the inheritance I give you now is yen xian in a short period of time, and transfer a part of the fairy source to your own use. Jian Wushuang heard the words, and his heart was slightly stunned. This is to teach the way of killing. I am afraid that his own big killing will increase a lot. But before that, I'm ready to hammer you, Junior. Yuan Jun shouted in a cold voice, and at the same time he was in the shape of electricity, crushing it with the world. A touch of bitterness appeared at the corner of Jian Wushuang's mouth, and this fight seemed inevitable. But it is not easy for him to compromise, even if it is an existence that is a level higher than himself, he dares to collide. Probing forward with the invisible sword in his hand. While the sword intent of the Xinghe Lake burst out, the fairy-like mountains and rivers were also covered. The true shadow of the selflessness was blessed for an instant, and the most gorgeous blow broke out. The worst battle began on the chessboard dojo. In the entire third heaven, the Black Sea was tumbling violently. Coming out of the next 3 days, the thin purple robe first met the pale-faced little emperor and draped the cloak on him. His Royal Highness, there have been some changes in the 6-day realm, said the thin purple robe, his expression a little solemn. Xiao Dijuan raised his eyelids and looked at the deep void ahead. Are they here? Yes, a lot of evangelists have been assembled. Okay, very good. He said 3 good words on his face, and his pale face became more and more ruddy. The emperor's front feet just left. My good brothers, they want to hang me. In the temple. His Royal Highness, our strength was already damaged when the immortal territory was destroyed. I'm afraid we will be a little bit powerless in the future. The thin purple robe said in a low voice, should you please come to Sword Heaven, official. Xiao Dijuan interrupted him directly, his eyes darkened. Could it be that we can't move without him? How did we get here before without him? This time, even if the background is polished, I will peel them off alive. Yes. With the raging wind raging, the void that had been torn apart in the battle with Xinyu now gathered streams of light from all directions. Roughly counting, there will never be hundreds of Yangtzeans. They all stopped in the void beyond the 6-day realm, and various streamers practiced the entire void into a rainbow shadow. Within the 6-day realm, he slowly walked out of the top repair camp like a dark cloud. At the forefront of this top repair camp, there are dozens of immortals listed, all of them with solemn eyes. The top repair camp of hundreds of thousands is full of unimaginable pressure. But in the eyes of those hundreds of Yangtzeans, it was so ridiculous. They only need to charge back and forth once. I am afraid that the camp formed by the top repairers will be shattered. The next moment, a pale and gloomy figure dressed in luxurious clothes walked out of the 6-day realm and soared to the front of the camp. Nearly 200 Yen after seeing this scene, all their complexions changed slightly. They absolutely did not expect that the little emperor would actually go outside the territory in person. With the soft sword in his hand pointing forward, Xiao Dijuan looked forward coldly. From the initial commotion back to calm, the first Yenxian shrouded in black light who couldn't see his figure, took a step forward and said, His Royal Highness, please step back. We are not here this time. You came towards your 6-day realm. As long as we destroy one of the heavens, it is considered to be a job. Don't embarrass us. Xiaodigen heard the words, sneered coldly, the son has a broken spine, dog. Since he has been hit by such a heavy injury and he refuses to be honest, I will let him hurt him again today. More than 200 Yangtzeans stepped forward together, all faces were extremely cold, and their goals were directed at the 6-day realm. This was Emperor Zhen Weiyang's first trial after he left the Great Siyu, and a battle of laying the curtain quietly began. Have you seen it? Young Master Yen seems to be surrounded outside the 6-day realm. Cui Jing hurried in the hall where the lights were bright and the fairy clouds curled in, conveying the message. Chun Xiu, who was categorizing some imperial pills, raised his head and glanced at him, and got busy again. What? Xiaodigen is besieged? Chen Qing, who was asleep on the case, flashed out of the hall in an instant. Please remember the domain name of the book's first publication. Mobile version reading URL. Chapter 4873. Wei Liujia, who was sitting by the side, slowly opened his eyes, looked around and said, "Then shall we go to be the leader?" Zhao Ting did not speak, but looked at Cui Jing, Chun Xiu, and Di Qing, who was in a big sleep, and found that they didn't mean to go to help at all. In the end, she couldn't help but said, "Aren't you going to help?" "Help? What can I do for you?" After Cui Jing delivered the news, the monkey eagerly took a fairy fruit from the case, then leaned on the pillar and ate it leisurely and muttered again, "It's not that Brother Jian has something wrong, and what other people have to do with us." Zhao Ting wanted to speak, but after looking around he finally swallowed the words. She only understood now that all of these men were only looking at Jian Wushuang. Even as the master of the six-day realm, the little emperor was not in their eyes. Don't they fear that the sun will get angry and attack them? Zhao Ting thought about it, but he quickly negated the idea. Except that Jian Wushuang and Xiao Dijuan had an inexplicable relationship, just a mysterious truth, they all captured people to the extreme. Zhao Ting had an intuition that the Gongzi Jiao's diffusion had been destroyed more than half, which definitely had a direct relationship with Diqing. At the moment, if you want to bring all of these onto the battlefield, I am afraid that only Jian Wushuang can come. She simply stopped worrying about these nostalgias, and continued to sit up with her eyes closed. After all, even if the entire 6 days had fallen, there were Jian Wushuang and the others in front of them. "I want your lives." With a sword squeezed out, repelling the digital fairy, Xiaodijin's whole body was surging with strands of black and white intertwined aura, with an irresistible force. That was his unique immortal style, and he could fight against the sun. Once Yanxian understands the immortal style, it is equivalent to touching the realm of Dianxian with one hand, and it is like a crushing existence for ordinary Yanxian. The dozens of immortals led by the thin purple robe, at this moment, under the protection of more than 100,000 top repairers, suffered the smallest losses. But countless repairs are decreasing at a speed visible to the naked eye. Facing the encirclement and suppression of more than 200 Yanxian, even 100,000 top repairers have collapsed. Immediately afterwards, with Chen Qing joining the battle, he abruptly resisted a wave of unstoppable shocks. "His Royal Highness, leave it to me here." Chen Qing shouted in a deep voice, his strong Yanli blocking more than 10 Yanxian behind him. "Behind is the 6-day realm, where can I retreat, tell me?" Xiaodijin said angrily, "Today is all killed in battle, don't even think of taking a step back." Chen Qing was the first to follow Xiaodijin. How could he not know his disposition? He said that fighting hard, it is absolutely impossible to take a step back. But the current situation is obviously coming from the 6-day destruction realm, how can it be blocked? Except for that existence. Thinking of this, Chen Qing hurriedly said, "Little Emperor, in going to see Brother Jian, we will definitely be able to survive this crisis." Xiaodijin heard the words, stretched out his hand and pulled out his collar. "Don't find him, wouldn't it be impossible to win without him?" Chen Qing wanted to refute, but seeing his cold face, he had to grit his teeth and said, "Then you can only fight to the death." After letting go of him, Xiao Dijuan rushed forward, facing the army of Yanxian, and raised his sword. "Little Emperor, don't force me to wait." A black big palm over the sky forced it back, and Yanxian, who was obscured by the dark clouds and couldn't see his true content, said in a cold voice, and 2 red eyes shot out, "We only destroy the 6-day realm, you can leave." With a fierce spit, he wiped off the blood on his face. Xiao Dijuan said in a cold voice, "The young man sent you here? So what is not? Your 6-day realm will definitely not be able to keep today." The leader Yanxian said coldly, "What are you using to stop it? The army behind you is just for making up the number." Xiao Dijuan smiled coldly, "I can guarantee that as long as you step into these 6-day realms, no one will want to go out alive." Ignoring his threat, he directly led nearly 100 of Yanxian as the head Yanxian to meet him. In an instant, it was capable of destroying hundreds of thousands of celestial realms, and it rose to the top, emitting extremely brilliant brilliance, bursting open before the 6-day realm. Just this shock, the entire top repair army was directly wiped out by 1/10. Every Xianxian who came to this realm was extremely cold and tyrannical at the same time. Every time they make a shot, they can directly wipe out dozens of top repairers, and countless top repairers quickly die. All kinds of powerful moves are irresistible divine punishments for the top repairers, and they can easily destroy the source just by contamination. Damn, a bunch of craps. Qin Qing fought bloody, and wiped out an immortal Yanxian with a palm. Thousands of dazzling lights suddenly condensed behind him, and a dim treasure appeared, all for Lao Tzu go to hell. He manipulated the huge treasure, like a peak, dragging the offensive of more than a dozen immortals. The thin purple robe also led less than 50 Yanxians in a resistance. But even so, it still cannot conceal the trend of decline. More than 200 Yanxians are like an incomparable arrow, piercing into the heart fiercely, unable to pull out. And as these eternal immortals continued to deepen, streams of light swept from the void in all directions. Every streamer is a fairy. Xiao Daijin's heart also sinks. This time there are more than 100 immortals who have come to the six-day realm. They stood in the void, and then resolutely joined the battle. Nearly 400 immortals. This is a scene of destruction. The little emperor was stunned in the same place. His face was red and bloody. Mobilizing 400 immortals, who in the entire big division can have such power? The fall of the six-day realm is a foregone conclusion. This is no longer just a force that young Master Shan can use, and it is bound to contain forces sent by other emperors. With the participation of nearly 100 immortals in the battle, directly overwhelmed the top repair camp in the six-day realm like a ruin. Countless top repairs died. The portal hole opened in 6 days. Qin Qing's treasure image was smashed in an instant, and various rushing powers shining into the void. Such a battle involving more than 500 Yanxians was almost the most massive battle since Emperor Zhen Weong established the Desai domain. Their goal is to completely destroy the entire 6 days. The void collapsed, the six-day realm door opened wide, and no force could stop them. And this first one is Degushin Tianyu. His Royal Highness, retreat, the six-day realm is not guaranteed. The thin purple robe said in a hoarse voice when he arrived behind Xiao Dijuan. Please remember the domain name of the book's first publication. Mobile version reading URL. Chapter 4874. After withstanding the fierce attacks of nearly 20 Yanxians, Qin Qing's immortal body was almost broken. He was already shaky. 100,000 repairs are already less than 10,000. Only a dozen of dozens of Yanxian have fallen. After opening the portal of the Six Heavens realm, the Degushin realm that bears the brunt is on the verge of breaking. The various forces that caused the shock of the heavens burst out completely. The power of more than 400 immortals directly shredded the entire Degushin universe. The heavenly air transport, the land plane, at this moment all turned into powder and scattered. At this moment, several figures stood outside the hall, all looking up at this scene with solemn expressions. Looking through the hazy cloud layer, looking at the continent plains, floating in the void after being shattered, it is indescribable miserable. Cui Jing's expression was a little nervous. It seems that this time it is really moving. Dagudian has been shattered. How many immortals have come here? Looking at this situation, I am afraid at least 200. Zhao Ting said in a rare voice. Much? How much? 200. Cui Jing opened his mouth, as if he had heard the most absurd words. The immortal Yen who came here may be far more than 200. Chun Qiu said at this time, and then he stretched out his palm to point to the void above his head. Sure enough, following the pointing of Chunkia's hand, streamers of various colors converged in the void, and there were no less than 300 or 400 points under the count. Each streamer represents an immortal. But in this instant, they completely annihilated the Daegu Tian domain and attacked the next heavenly domain. Good guys, aren't they rushing to us here? Cui Jing looked a little ugly. Hundreds of immortals, I'm afraid we. With a dignified and deadly atmosphere, Diqing stretched out from the temple. What is noisy and rants, a good night's sleep is disturbed. Chun Qiu and others saw Di Qing awakening from sleep and felt calm in their hearts inexplicably. Although they didn't know the depth of Daiking's realm, they all breathed a sigh of relief. Cui Jing immediately said, "A total of 300 to 400 Yangtzeans, all of whom have entered the six-day realm. I am afraid that it will not be long before they hit us." Di Qing came to the outside of the hall and looked up at the sky. Sure enough, dozens of streamers had already broken through the barrier and poured into Xiaoyushan. "Good fellow, it seems that those who want to kill young Master Yen are no less than those who want to kill young Master Imo." Di Qing slowly raised the corners of his mouth. Cui Jing asked, "Are we going to escape now?" "Escape? Where to escape?" Di Qing glanced at him, then looked at the immortals who were about to descend from the sky. "Wushuang has not yet returned. If we leave now, we will cause a lot of unnecessary trouble. Just stay here, kill as many immortals as you come." Daiking's golden eyes suddenly sharpened, and layers of red gold ripples surged around him, with a trembling breath. Then he directly ascended to the sky. "I'm afraid it's not crazy." Cui Jing was dumbfounded. "He is not crazy, he is ready to fight." Chun Qiu said, drew a dagger condensed by power from his waist. Cui Jing gritted his teeth, "Then I will be crazy." Above the dim sky, nearly 100 Yangtzeans stepped into Xiaoyushan at the same time. Looking at this extremely abundant universe, they didn't hesitate to directly urge the force to destroy it. At this moment, a lazy and cold voice suddenly resounded from all directions, "A bunch of unopened shops, get out." All the Yangtzean gathered here, their eyes condensed, and then looked straight ahead. Di Qing stepped into the air, but the power released by the whole body was all restrained, like the most humble top repair. Hearing this insulting sound, the leader of the old My Yangtzean's eyes suddenly condensed, and he screamed, "I want to die." After the words were over, a black pagoda that shook the sky and the earth smashed down from his hands. Di Qing didn't even bother to lift his eyelids. Facing the black tower that was rising by 1,000,000 feet against the storm, he made a shocking move. He raised his head, opened his mouth, and directly spit out. Just such a spit, facing the wind, like shooting a divine arrow from the sun, suddenly spit on the black tower. Rumble! That mouthful of saliva exuding golden light easily smashed the black tower, and then shot at the old My Yangtzean unabated. Chirp! With the millions of feet of black pagoda shattered, old My Yangtzean slowly lowered his head to look at his immortal body. I saw that from the neck down, the entire belly of the fairy body disappeared, and even the fairy source was directly annihilated into nothingness. "Why, what's the matter?" Until the final fall, he couldn't believe that he was spitting to death. The sky fell into a dead silence, and all the Yangtzean gathered took a step back, watching Di Qing vigilantly. "I said that you can destroy the entire six-day realm wherever you want, but here is the only way." Di Qing looked at them and said lazily, "Smuggles, did I say clearly enough? Do you need to repeat it? Again?" After a short period of death, a middle-aged Yangtzean with a clean face and no need took a step forward and said in a condensed voice, "Who are you? We will not embarrass you." "It's not difficult for me." Di Qing raised his brows. "That's how you guys of the younger generation talk to Lao Tzu?" Having said this, Di Qing directly stretched out his hand and held it in the air. Then the middle-aged Yangtzean could not speak, his complexion was purple and black, and even Yanli was directly pinched out. Then his head burst open without warning, and even his entire fairy body was torn apart. "I repeat it one last time, now I leave here, this seat will not be held accountable. If I insist on destroying this place, I will kill you." Di Qing brushed his sleeves, his face sinking like water. At this moment, all Yangtzean felt a kind of supreme pressure inexplicably. That kind of pressure made them all hesitate, and for a while, no one dared to step forward. But with more and more immortals soared into this little lonely sky, and the atmosphere began to change from dead silence to restlessness. In the spring and autumn period, Cui Jing, Zhao Ting, and Wei Lujia's Yangtzean also came, all looking solemnly at the overwhelming Yangtzean ahead. Facing such a situation, Di Qingyun was calm, as if he didn't pay attention to it at all, but then a secret sound came from his mouth. Hey, listen to me. I haven't fully recovered yet. I'm afraid it will be difficult to deal with so many immortals. So if you don't scare them away later, how far will you run? Do you understand? Chun Chiu and others all turned from shock to helplessness, feeling like they were on a broken ship. Cui Jing's expression turned bitter. I put such a big aura together with you, was it to scare them away? Please remember the domain name of the book's first publication. Mobile version reading URL. Chapter 4875. The sky above the sky is all covered by the Huamang of immortals, and the forces gathered by more than 400 immortals are unimaginable. The atmosphere became more restless. The more than 10 Yangtzeans in the lead also glanced at each other at this time, and then sent a tentative blow. Yen force surging, like a startling dragon violently plundering Xiang Diqing. He smiled coldly, his palms suddenly closed, and thousands of golden lights shot up, like a big net bag strangling down. The more than a dozen Yangtzeans didn't even have time to retreat, and they were all strangled by Jin Mang and turned into fans. Those who dare to take the first step, die. Di Qing drank coldly, and at the same time an invisible treasure that covered millions of miles appeared. All Yangtzeans were frightened, but after they looked at each other, they all released their forces in the next moment, strangling together. Di Qing, who was originally extremely arrogant, saw this mighty scene and said directly, "Run." At the last moment, it also revealed the improper bravery of Spring and Autumn and the others, and at the next moment, they turned back and ran without a trace. Catch up and run them to death. As the trembling sound resounded, the entire Shao Gudian began to fall apart. The continent plane was shattered, and the six-day realm excluding the Wanyushan, the vastest heaven outside Degyushan, and Zyegyushan eventually shattered. Wherever hundreds of Yangtzeans passed, Tianyu was destroyed. So far, the entire six-day realm has been damaged. His Royal Highness, go find Brother Jian, otherwise the entire six-day realm will be destroyed. Chen Qing's face was exhausted, and he was already at the end of the force. Outside the emptiness of the six-day realm, the little emperor was totally lost. The thin purple robe also said at this time, His Royal Highness, go to the Sword Heaven official, the six-day realm is destroyed, and all the details will no longer exist. And the remaining 10 Yangtzean around him, none of them dared to speak. At this time, all the foundations of the six-day realm were almost wiped out. Even if the Sword Heaven official appeared, I was afraid that it would not be able to recover. There was a ray of divine blood pouring out of the corner of his mouth without warning, and Shao Daijin's figure was shaky. The thin purple robe stretched out his hand to support him, and then handed him a square scarf. Slowly wiped away the blood from the corner of his mouth, Shao Daijin's gaze seemed to become compromised. Go to the third heaven and meet the Sword Heaven official. Where are we going to escape? There are chasing soldiers behind. Cui Jing's panting voice resounded in the void, and Chun Chiu and others followed Di Qing, fleeing desperately. At the forefront, Di Qing closed his eyes tightly, as if feeling some breath. Stop talking, I'm feeling where Wushuang is. Di Qing said, then opened his eyes and looked into the deep void ahead. There, it was the third horizon in the next 3 days. After Shao Gudian was completely wiped out, hundreds of Yangtzean horses kept running, and also followed Di Qing closely, and gathered for the next 3 days. If we rashly brought so many Yangtzean to Brother Jian, won't something happen? Stopping in the void of the third heaven, Cui Jing said nervously. Of course something will happen, so the top priority now is to call Wushuang out and let's leave here together. Di Qing frowned and said, you guys go in and find Wushuang. They'll stop here for a while. Chun Chiu nodded. He was not an indecisive person. Dang even soared into the third heaven. With the arrival of Di Qing and the others, it was Shao Dijuan and Qin Qing who came to meet. When Qin Qing saw them, he said with joy, my dear, I know that there is nothing wrong with you. You are also looking for Brother Jian? Cui Jing greeted them. His mother, there are too many gangsters. Come here and leave here with Brother Jian before making plans. Qin Qing gritted his teeth. Just in the time to speak, those immortals who are like Tarsus maggots also came. There are still more than 400 Yangtzeans left, and they are like the stars of the sun, and the aura that they exude is depressing to the extreme. 400 Yangtzeans, even if you look at the entire DCU, are unimaginable existence. Excluding Dian Immortal, they are the pinnacle forces in the entire Great Division region, waving their hands to destroy the stars and destroying the universe with their fingers. So that they were able to push the Emperor's son under the seat of Zhenwiang like a dog of the mourning family, arrogant to the extreme. Let's get out of the way. I'm only waiting to destroy the six-day realm, and the rest of the immortals will not be affected. The black robe immortal Ern, who was shrouded in dark clouds, said, "Otherwise, you will all funeral." Di Qing's face was stunned, and there was a touch of disgust in his eyes. "If I don't let it go, what should I do?" "No? Then die." The black robe Yenxian screamed, using his whole body as the origin. The void collapsed rapidly, and at the same time, one after another, like 9 nether pythons, drilled out of the collapsed void and went straight. Di Qing strangled and left. With his hands, nearly 100 Yenxian also released a full blow at this moment. All kinds of powers that can easily tear apart the laws of heaven, accompanied by billions of rainbow shadows, fell down. Damn it. Di Qing gritted his teeth. He hasn't recovered from the loss of a true life, and I'm afraid he will be hit hard again. Xian is above the heavenly way, beyond the shackles of existence. Even the most ordinary Xian can wave to create the heavenly way. Therefore, at the moment, the combined force of nearly 100 immortals can't even bear the rules of heaven. The endless void collapsed, and the shock it caused would even twist the next 3 days into dust. It's just that, the next moment, the sudden change occurs. The horrible blow that even the rules of heaven could not bear, but it has not fallen. Time seemed to stagnate, and even the collapsed void was closing. Sui Qing, who was gritting his teeth about to explode, was stunned when he saw this scene. Everything was strangely silent. Then a mysterious scene appeared, and a brilliant Tianhe that stretched for hundreds of millions of miles quietly floated above the void and easily swallowed the blow that gathered nearly 100 immortals. All Yenxian looked towards the source of the river that day. I saw a spirit with his upper body naked, his body rising in blood slowly coming out of the barrier. With every step of his movement, has wisps of blood surging under his skin to the extreme. And behind this figure, there stood another figure in a black robe like a peak. A strand of ink dripped down the black robe into the void. He slowly raised his head, and a lot of blood began to escape from the original red-golden eyes. Sword Heaven Official. The remaining Yenxian behind Xiao Dijuan and the tens of thousands of Ding Xiu opened their eyes wide at this moment, their hearts like drums. Xiaodigen slightly raised the corners of his mouth, and then returned to peace. Di Qing also raised his eyebrows slightly and let out a sigh of relief. He didn't even realize that after seeing Jian Wushuang appear, he would completely relax. Please remember the domain name of the book's first publication. Mobile version reading URL. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.